platform to raise your complaints. As recommended in the Daily Telegraph, a spokesman said.com, fighting for you, saving you money. Love Sport Radio, on digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio. Me, Richard Lee, and the sneezy, Patrick Christys. Love the fact that I'm in an enclosed space with someone who is ill.
Good luck with this one, Rich.
Fantastic. Let's go through the top stories. WADA is to investigate all athletes who trained with man coach Alberto Salazar. Farah's old samples may be retested. Klopp dismisses Pep's claim that Sadio Mane is a diver. West Brom beat managerless Stoke City 2-0 to go top of the Championship, and England collapse against New Zealand in T20. New Zealand now make it 2-1. They take a 2-1 lead in the 5-match series. I am here with... What's happened?
I've just got a cold. I've got a cold.
We're in this enclosed space and you've sneezed about 20 times already.
I know, you lucky boy.
All right, geez. How's life?
I'm all right, thank you, mate. Yeah, the net's closing in on Sir Mo Farah, isn't it?
Well, isn't it just?
Yeah, or, not at all, depending on which way you look at it. Mo Farah faces having his drug test samples reassessed as part of a new World Anti-Doping Agency investigation into athletes from the Nike Oregon project.
But Mo Farah, he'll feel fine this morning. He's got nothing to hide.
I think he's probably going 50p, 20p, isn't he?
Do you think?
I reckon.
Yeah.
I would be. He's testing my samples.
I haven't heard that expression. I got exactly what that expression means now that you've said it. I've never heard that before. So
yeah, it's a disgusting northern thing.
It really is. Yeah. I love that we started the show with that.
So WADA president, WADA is the board that assesses athletics, etc. Sir Craig Reedy has confirmed to the Times that the doping bans for the Oregon project, Alberto Salazar and training group's consultant physician will stand, but it also means that historic samples given by several top athletes, including Sir Mo Farah, will now be retested.
Indeed, which is interesting. I guess they have all these samples on file and they'll keep them on file forever, I assume.
Well, it does beg the question, why has it taken so long? Because this has all been emerged. Salazar obviously has been done for various things, including administering testosterone, intravenous drips and transporting testosterone across countries, basically. There was also some banned testosterone sachets found in the flat that Mo Farah shared with Alberto Salazar in the run-up to London 2012. And here we are now, November the 5th, 2019, and we're just getting Mo Farah's historical samples tested.
Yeah. Your thoughts on this?
Well, obviously it's innocent until proven guilty, of course.
True. If they do all these retests and it comes out that he is still innocent, then do we let it go and just say, fine, we understand?
I think we have to. I think we have to. There's only so much that you can do. I think it's absolutely fair that there's a degree of suspicion here. Yeah. It has to be. You'd be an idiot not to be suspicious of this. But that said, if they don't find anything, then I think we don't have a choice but to let Sir Mo go, really.
Fair enough. Well, it's a big story. We're going to be talking about that much more. Klopp and Pep seems to be... I don't know whether the paper's just building this up, and to me it doesn't seem like a lot. However, a lot of the papers are going quite heavy on this, in that Pep's insinuated that Mane might dive from time to time. Klopp's come back and had his own little dig in a sort of way, talking about tactical fouls. In fact, we can hear from Klopp, who says that Sadio is not a diver.
I'm not really in the Man City mood in the moment, to be honest, and don't think about it. And people from other clubs, it's always like this. That's how it is. But Sadio is not a diver. So it was a situation in the Aston Villa game where he got a contact and went down, and maybe it was not a penalty, but there was contact. It's not like jumping over a leg and do like he hit you or whatever.
He did sound like a Terminator a little bit just then.
Yeah.
He is not a diver.
Yeah.
He did sound a little
Get to the chopper!
He could be the bad guy in a film, couldn't he?
He could, actually, but one that you kind of end up falling in love with
somehow.
somehow.
The bad guy that you want to win. He ends up ending the world, and we're kind of happy for him.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Yeah, classic Klopp.
So there is this war of words. So Pep Guardiola, this is ahead of what I think is probably a 6-pointer, really, at the top of the table. Liverpool against City. If Liverpool win, there is an argument to say that in November we've already got our champions.
Yeah.
To an extent. But so Pep Guardiola ramped things up. Sometimes it is diving. Sometimes it is the talent to score incredible goals in the last minute. What happened has happened not once, twice. It happened a lot of times it is because it is a talent. What I think there is that Pep Guardiola is referring to Sadio Mane in the way that we would refer to Tom Daley and say, what a talent that is, mate. Nice speedos.
Right.
And then Jurgen Klopp has gone, my brain is not big enough to think about another team. Nearly did the voice there, didn't. I'm not sure if Pep spoke about Sadio or the team. Both is not too nice. Sadio is not a diver. It's very hard to read when someone is... Because bear in mind, by the way, I speak no Spanish and I speak no German, so hats off to them. But it is difficult to read a direct quote from somebody whose first language is not English.
Can they not, when it comes to a quote, can they not like alter it slightly so that it makes sense? Is that the rules?
So. You'd think so, but no, alas, that's how you get sued.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. I know that Klopp did then insinuate in retaliation to an extent that they play for tactical fouls. I think he did drop that one in as well. I just wonder whether the papers are just blowing this up to make something of the fact that we've got a big game coming up at the weekend, whether there's actually anything there or not. Because from what I understand, Pep gave Klopp a phone call on the back of the Champions League final to congratulate him on winning the Champions League final. Yeah, at the time. So I think there is obviously like that friendly rivalry there. I don't think it's spilled over to Sir Alex and Wenger, how that got a one. I kind of miss that.
That was lovely, wasn't it?
It was, wasn't it? You think back, they're the good old days now,
Ferguson
which is
and
such
Keegan.
a shame. Oh,
Ferguson and Keegan was
that was different, because at least with Wenger and Ferguson, it felt a little bit more equal.
Yeah.
With Ferguson and Keegan, it just felt like he was just like the puppet.
Yeah. It was the equivalent of
puppeteer.
like, you know, when you've got a kid, like a young kid,
Yeah.
and you put cling film over the toilet seat just to really wind it up.
Or you just have your hand outstretched on their forehead and they're swinging away. You're like, little scrappy do. Come on. Take your best shot.
I'd love it if I hit you. I would love it if I hit you.
Yeah, so, start the shows you mean to go on. West Brom beat manager Stoke City last night. I did watch this, actually. West Brom were good, Stoke were poor. I'm worried about Stoke.
Stoke are in trouble.
They're in real trouble. Real trouble. They've got a lot of highly paid players who, at the moment, just aren't clicking at all. We've got a guest on to talk about that later on, and certainly from West Brom's point of view, they've gone top of the table again. Let's hear from Rory Delap. Of course, Rory Delap, who, by the way, I faced a few Rory Delap throws back in the day. Oh, my. They were horrendous. Worse than coming for a corner. That was a classic keepers away moment.
Really? Oh, really?
Yeah. One of my favourite shouts as a goalkeeper.
What, the whole... Give it the big one.
Well, it'd be like, so, keepers, away. You just say it really short, so it's like, or you do it the other way around. Keepers, away! And
maximum confusion.
yes, maximum confusion in the defence, and then when they head it into an empty net, then it's the classic Schmeichel one where I point fingers at everyone.
Big time,
The fans think it's their fault.
You've got to.
Yeah.
You can't have them thinking it's your fault.
No. We play out that script. It was always a bit of a... That's where the theatre comes in. The key of conceding a goal is to make it look like it's not your fault, even when more often than not it is your fault.
Right.
It's one of the skills I teach my goalkeepers, and they're very grateful for it.
Is it? That reminds me of, I think it was a Fry and Laurie sketch where the ball, he's got a load of kids in front of him, and he's like, it's like a PE teacher. He's got the ball, and he's like, picks the ball, just lobs it away, and he's like, I don't know what that is, but we won't have any of that nonsense around here. Now get into the box and throw yourselves to the ground. Good. Penalty. Yeah, it's a penalty.
Oh, is that Priory or is that Jurgen Klopp? Was that?
So yeah, a bit of both.
Bit of both. Roy Delap, so mentioned he took over last night as the interim manager. No, he's not even that. But anyway, he did take over last night, and he said, we're in a scrap.
I felt we were just starting to get a bit of a foothold again without creating anything. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna lie there, but we were starting to get a few passes together, and I'm talking about a few, not a lot. So we've got to be better. We know that we're in a real scrap, and we need a little bit more in terms of the fight for the ugly side of the game.
Caretaker manager, and he has just literally said we're in a real scrap.
Yeah.
So, I mean, didn't really need to play the quote, did I?
Well, I mean, they've gone to the right place in Stoke if they want to see the ugly side of the game, haven't they? Stoke currently rock bottom of the table on just 8 points compared to, obviously, West Brom, who beat them last night 2-0 on 30 points at top of the table. Preston, by the way, Second place.
Amazing.
You'd have got long odds on that, wouldn't you?
Well, this is where it's funny. Like Alex Neil, obviously Stoke have been trying to get him as manager. They're now they've given up their fight to get Alex Neil, and of course,
why would you even bother?
Financially, I guess from Alex. This is the thing, right? Stoke have got a lot of money, and they've obviously still got the Premier League payments that they're utilising. However, they're utilising them pretty badly at the moment. It's fair to say.
Yeah, I don't see how they get out of this. I really don't see how they get out of this. They are fast becoming quite a long way adrift, actually. All right, Barnsley are only 1 point ahead of them, but Middlesbrough on 12 points, and then you look up there, Luton on 14, and Wigan, Reading and Huddersfield all on 15. Actually, Huddersfield on 16.
It'll be interesting with Stoke. I'll tell you the one that I thought yesterday, Lee Bowyer.
Go on.
Well, he's doing brilliantly. No, we've got the Charlton fan, Mark, our producer.
Oh, what, you want him to go to Stoke?
I don't want him to go, but I think if you're Stoke and you're looking for your next manager, who's the best manager in the Championship at the moment?
Lee Bowyer, surely he's not gonna go.
Well, they can get him for next to nothing because he's on the smallest contract ever. Charlton's brilliant, putting him on a 1-year contract. He's got the best support team around him. He is doing exceptionally well. By the way, I don't want this to happen because I actually went and watched Charlton under 23s yesterday. That's what I do for fun in the afternoons.
Okay.
And, I'm a big fan of Charlton and what they're doing. So I didn't want it to happen. However, personally, I think Charlton need to give him like a 5-year contract. I think that would just make absolute sense so they've got him protected. Yeah. But they haven't got him protected at the moment. If I'm Stoke and I'm looking around, you can't get Alex Neil, who's the next best manager at the moment that you can get for probably next to nothing, given that he's on a 1-year contract. Personally, I think that's a great shout.
Yeah, I just don't know if Lee Bowyer would go. I mean, I think he's got a sniff of the Premier League, hasn't he?
Yeah, fair point.
I still can't get over what's going to happen if Charlton actually get promoted. Because they've got a worse team than they had last year. They're playing incredibly well. I don't mean any disrespect to this whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable what's happening at Charlton.
Oh, do you know what they're going to do? They're going to sell like Dylan Phillips, Lyle Taylor. Yeah. They're going to sell the best players and actually see if they can survive in the Premier League.
And then if Lee, how long is it before Lee Bowyer's just completely bald, face as red as Sir Alex Ferguson, sat in the dugout with like a load of children, like just picks a mascot. Yeah. Oh, come on then. And then they just keep winning. It's how does this keep happening?
Calling the what's my budget? How can my budget be less?
Come
Again,
on.
We're in the Premier League.
Oh.
Look, we're going to be talking a bit of business next. We are going to get into the cricket. Of course, England collapse against New Zealand. What's going on with England?
I think we're on a bit of a come down.
Do you think?
Yeah, definitely. It must be quite tricky to go from the pinnacle of the world to, just not playing in that level of game. I think that's it, isn't it? You struggle once you've played in something that intense or done something in your professional life that's that intense. It can be a bit tricky to do anything other than that level, I think.
Fair point. Well, look, we're going to be talking to guests about that later as well. The time is 17 minutes to 7.
This is Love Sport.
Hi, I'm Barry. I'm a retired school bursar from Chingford. I thought I was paying too much for my energy and went onto a spokesmansaid.com and found that I could reduce my costs overall by £568 per annum, and I'm very grateful for that help.
With a spokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
Driving too close to the car in front gives you less time to react. You may not realise that you're tailgating. Leave a 2-second gap between you and the vehicle in front. When it's wet, leave a 4-second gap. By staying back, you give yourself time to react. Stay safe. Stay back. Highways England, connecting the country.
How are you? How are you really? Modern life can be busy, and sometimes it's easier to look after others before looking after yourself. But there's only one you. And making small changes to your lifestyle now could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. So take the first step to a healthier you with our free How Are You quiz. See how you score and get personalised tips and support. From how to eat a little healthier to turning a 10-minute walk into exercise. Just search One You.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys, who's slightly ill today, but In pretty good
Don't bring the
spirits.
vibe down.
No,
It's
no,
all
no.
right.
It's good because what I've said to you, we spoke about this off air. I'm going to give you energy.
You do. Your aura alone.
I'm giving you it right now.
Yeah, talking of giving energy,
Go on.
Mo Farah's being investigated, isn't he?
Right, see what you're doing there.
Yeah.
We're going to talk business.
Okay,
Let's do that, but we'll come back.
After that,
We'll
we're going to talk
about
about the fact that Mo Farah's old samples are going to be retested, and it's about time.
Indeed. Time for this. Business time. Oh, it's business. That means Mr. Chris Bailey, founder of FinancialOrbit.com, who no doubt was singing along himself back home. Morning, Chris.
Good morning. Good morning. Is Patrick depressed or something, or is that the problem?
He's come in. He's a little bit poorly today, bless him. So he's been sneezing. He's Mr.
Right,
Sneezy.
I just want to make something very clear. I'm absolutely fine, okay? I've got a little bit of a cold. Let's move on.
I mean, the depression issues, we'll talk about that privately, Chris, but I'm working with him on that.
Another thing.
Yeah, that's another aspect. We don't want to bring the show down. Anywho, let's talk some business. Let's talk mother care, shall we? They've gone into administration.
Oh, they have. It came out yesterday. Effectively, it means if you're a Mothercare fan, if you pop into their stores or something in the UK, hurry up, because I don't think they'll be there that much longer. There are a few other scenarios that could play out. It is possible that it might be saved, but I have to say, when companies get to this stage, certainly retailers in recent years, it generally only means one thing, and that means they're ultimately going to disappear from our high streets. And obviously, it's a bit sad because probably all of us benefited from a bunch of Mothercare products when we were somewhat younger. But the trouble is, today's young parents and related don't really use the store as much. They go online, they have other options, supermarkets and whatnot. So there you go. Mothercare, unfortunately, in the UK is probably selling into the sunset, although the business is going to continue internationally where it's still quite successful.
Yeah, this is. I'm assuming this is because of online bits of it. Should we just scrap the high street and just everybody? Let's just have Amazon. That's all we need in the world.
Just Amazon and a load of inner city housing.
Yes,
that's right.
That's
well,
it.
In a weird way, we've got these housing shortages and whatever. It might not be a completely mad idea, but I think people like going to high streets for other reasons, don't they? Coffees and charity shops and whatever. So, I think a bit of mixed use is what's more likely to happen.
Wise advice indeed. Uber shares have dipped.
Uber had an absolute shocker yesterday evening. They came out with $1 billion and change of dollars of losses, which is not a good look. They said they're going to lose over $3 billion this year, which is no small chunk of change. Be a bit hacked off you got that on your Uber bill, wouldn't you, at the end of a ride? And they even said that things like Uber Eats weren't kind of growing as fast as they hoped. So Uber, it's fantastic. I have used it. It's very nice, very, very efficient, very 21st century. But, I don't know, I'm just an old-fashioned guy. I like businesses that make money. And Uber at the moment just isn't, despite being potentially revolutionary.
Yeah, I don't understand how they're not. If that makes sense. I appreciate there's certain costs, but I think
they're starting to face competition for the first time from things like Captain and all these different things, aren't they, really?
Do you know what, Uber, one of the things I don't know if you've seen this in Dubai, if you go on the Uber app, you've obviously got... Clever. You've obviously got the normal car, but you can also get a helicopter. Do you know that? Really? An Uber helicopter.
I thought you were going to say a camel there, but
I mean, that as well. That's a different app altogether.
I would ride the living heck out of that, by the way. I'd get a camel to work every day.
It's retro, it's the equivalent of a scooter here or something, isn't it, basically? So, but yeah, the reason why they're losing a bunch of money is quite simple. You've got massive infrastructure you've got to put in, and the trouble is, you've got the cost of all of that. You've got everything in it. They are attracting a lot of customers, but it's not ramping as quick as they would probably hope. So it's sort of a bit hit and hope, and $3 billion of losses is not a good look.
No, it isn't indeed. Record US stock markets.
Well, this is the complete corollary to this. You had Uber coming up with mega losses, but the reality is US stock markets, actually global stock markets, to be honest, are on a bit of a run at the moment. The three big US indices were at record highs yesterday, and it's all because the great Donald has decided to have a bit more of a deeper and more intimate chat with his favourite Chinese pal, President Xi. So the two presidents are getting on a bit better, and as a consequence, the world sort of says, sigh of relief and pushes the stock markets up. In essence, that's the financial markets in a nutshell.
Fantastic. Chris, as always, we do appreciate you coming on. We will speak tomorrow, I hope.
Pleasure. See you then.
Great stuff. Chris Bailey, founder of financialorbit.com.
Always a nice man.
Isn't he? It always picks me up in the morning. You know, I come in, I see you, and yeah, and then we speak to Chris Bailey early on. I think it's good because it just sets the tone for the show, you know?
Absolutely. Mo Farah.
Yes, there you go. We're going to go heavy on Mo, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. So Mo Farah faces having his drug test samples reassessed as part of new World Anti-Doping Agency investigation. This follows, of course, his long-standing coach Alberto Salazar, who also coached several other top athletes and fronted up Nike's Oregon Project, which is their flagship athletics program in, you guessed it, Oregon.
Of course.
He has been banned from the sport for 4 years over anti-doping violations. Now, the reason why Mo is embroiled in all this is that he initially started getting trained by Salazar. His results or performances started improving drastically. He even shared a flat with Salazar in the build-up to London 2012 Olympic Games, and in that flat there was found banned substances. Now, there's no indication that Mo Farah as yet has ever taken any of those, and he has never failed a drugs test. But this is one of the things that's now happening. And one of the suspicions, and this may well prove to be completely unfounded, but one of the suspicions is that if Alberto Salazar was able to mask some of the substances that perhaps may or may not have been in his athlete system, then actually now technology could be so good that we'd be able to test at least for the masking agent. Right. So if there's a masking agent, I think it's pretty safe to say there's a reason for that. So that's where we are at the minute.
Yeah, I wonder how he's feeling. Obviously, I guess, look, if he's completely innocent, then it'll be interesting how or if he's completely innocent, he'll feel fine, won't he? He won't have anything to worry about. If anything, this will be a great news for Mo because it will clear his name and he can finally move on.
Yeah, well, that's it, but...
Isn't it, by the way, and his name is cleared at the moment, we have to say that, of course, but you know what I mean, that bit of suspicion, which is there, of course.
It's got to be there, man. It has to be there, and I'm not just saying this because I don't want Mo Farah to be a drugs cheat. I really don't. But it would be ridiculous if there wasn't a big black cloud over his name at the moment. And this should have been... This is the thing, though, right? Why didn't he call for this to happen sooner? He presumably could have said, look, let's put this to bed, go back over all my samples. Now, it may be because he doesn't know whether or not Salazar was actually giving him something. You know, if you're, however far into training and your coach just hands you a bottle of water on one of the laps or a bottle of energy drink or whatever it is, you don't really know what's in that.
No.
You know, that could be the case as well. Maybe he's worried about that. But I just question why it's taken so long for WADA to do this. You know, if you're investigating and then banning one of the most famous athletics coaches in the world, then why aren't you investigating everyone that was under him?
Yeah. Well, we had the incident, didn't we, where you came in and gave me that glass of water the other day, and then it was only afterwards you told me what was in it, which and I had no idea.
How was the drive home?
I mean, I'm just so fortunate I made it.
Yeah,
you know,
so is everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, probably a step too far, I would suggest.
Yeah. My ongoing plan to end up hosting this show will inevitably.
I mean, there
come
are
to
simpler
fruition.
ways, Patrick. There really are.
No, I've really tried loads of stuff.
Have you?
Yeah.
I've felt very weird a few times driving home.
I know.
You've tried so many different things.
You're really repellent to things.
It's got quite a high threshold.
Yeah.
So with it, and that could be the case. The point is, of course, he had his best years between 2011 2017 with Salazar. Whenever he's asked about Salazar, he does seem to get really awkward, and he's given some funny responses over the last month or so.
That's part of it, isn't it? You see, this is part of it where Farah was asked after, I think it was the Chicago Marathon, I think it was, where he believed he'd finished 8th and was quite a way off the pace, obviously. And they said to him afterwards, they just said, look, how do you are you disappointed? I think the question was that Alberto Salazar's been, no. And he goes, it's racism. I've seen this before. I've seen it with Raheem Sterling. I've seen this. Well, it's not racism, first and foremost. And that was a bizarre answer, I thought. So we'll have to wait and see. But they are limited in terms of exactly what they can get their hands on. So the US agency, this is the anti-doping agency. They were limited by the samples that were available to them. So it had no access to samples taken at the Olympic Games and was not always granted permission to retest samples that are in other authority jurisdiction, right?
Yep.
So now, because WADA's got involved, they can do that. So WADA is responsible for a lot of the Olympic samples and things like that. So it is just a more wide-ranging investigation.
So I wonder how quickly this can happen. 'Cause this is the only thing when you hear about these investigations, they can take so long. You know, I was thinking about it the other day, by the way, this is kind of on a complete tangent, where the PFA, they're going through an investigation of sorts, aren't they? Now, that story was, 6 months ago, 9 months ago? And it just goes quiet for so long. So things like this concern me, where all good and well, they're going to retest samples when? Can't they do it today? I mean, surely someone's got a free half an hour, they can just quickly...
Well, you'd have thought so, wouldn't you? You would have thought so, but no, because that won't give them time to cover anything up. It won't give them time to do it thoroughly. Sorry, everyone. Didn't mean that. Did a bit.
I had a feeling you might.
Yeah. No, but this is it. So we'll have to wait and see exactly how long it takes. But there's a little handy kind of Q&A in the Times today, which is, why does the World Anti-Doping Agency want to retest samples? Well, it's because within days of Alberto Salazar being banned, WADA was called to investigate the athletes, not just the coach. Who are the leading names who've worked with Salazar? Mo Farah, of course. Matt Centrovitz, Donovan Brazier and Sifan Hassan have all become Olympic or world champions at the Oregon Project. So they are now under suspicion as well.
Yeah.
And which may well prove out to be unfounded.
Exactly.
Legally.
We hope that they are unfounded.
I hope that they are, because I think it would shatter athletics, but it would be all too predictable. Sometimes, you just know, or you have a feeling that something's happening, She's coming in later, she smells like another guy, she's just got less time for you personally.
He's actually there in the house.
He's actually there in the house.
Yeah.
I'm making him breakfast.
Yeah.
All these things.
Just small signs.
Yeah, just these
and
little things.
at some point you think, maybe, just a little bit of suspicion.
Yeah, she says, I'm leaving you for this guy.
Yeah.
And you get and you think, oh, maybe it's staring me in the face.
Just possibly. 3 minutes to 7.
This is Love Sport.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men. Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply doesn't work. Even a quick look at a message, or firing off a quick reply, affects your concentration and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident. And save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it, you just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F. Face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A. Arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S. Speech. Is their speech slurred? T. Time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
Lost for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys. He has given me so much wisdom. I just wish you could hear our breaks sometimes. Absolute nonsense they are, aren't they, Just? Yeah. We've got a big hour coming up. We would advise you to stay tuned because we're going to be speaking to James Rowe, Dutch football expert, of course, Chelsea Ajax. Big we're also speaking to Rob, our rugby fan in Japan, who I'm delighted we're speaking to.
So this is the guy that booked flights after 5 pints, didn't have a ticket to the final, went anyway, he'd had a shattered kneecap. Here we go.
We'll find out exactly how this story ended. So do stay tuned. 0208 70 20 558 if you want to get in touch, or on YouTube.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7. People with autism or a learning disability in secure hospital units are to have their care reviewed. The Health Secretary is setting up an independent panel to help get patients back into the community. It follows a report which said those in detention face horrific treatment. Jeremy Corbyn's again promising voters that he'll get Brexit sorted within 6 months if he becomes Prime Minister. He's giving a speech later, but Boris Johnson insists Labour's plan will just mean more dither and delay. Meanwhile, the Liberal Democrats leader Jo Swinson is urging ITV to include her in its TV debate, which is currently only due to feature the PM and opposition leader.
I should be in those debates with Boris Johnson and Jeremy Corbyn, and frankly, if they are refusing to debate me, then it looks like they are sexist, or they are scared, or possibly both.
ITV says it's invited her to appear later in the evening, as well as on a 7-way show. 2 men in their 20s have been left seriously injured after being shot in West Yorkshire. It's believed those behind the attack in Liversedge yesterday evening made off in a small dark car. A charity says almost everyone in the UK who uses food banks is destitute, with only £50 a week to live on. The Trussell Trust also reveals a fifth of those who use the service are single parents, despite them making up just 5% of the population. This woman lost the benefits she had as carer to her mum, who died this year. She says the universal credit system isn't working.
I find universal credit, for what they're giving people to live on and what they've got to pay out, is not much to live on, especially when it's monthly. Because before, I wasn't getting monthly payment, the benefits that I was on before. So I'm finding it a struggle just to try and live on a month's payment.
And the Brit Awards is making changes for its 40th show next year, including fewer prizes. There's now just going to be 9 handed out. The ceremony will be held in London in February. And that's the latest. I'm Rosa McRae.
Love sport.
This November.
You think you do it for the money? It's the game, the adrenaline rush. What if it is?
Prepare to read between the lines.
How much do you think she's worth? I'm gonna take it all.
The Good Liar is gripping and deliciously deceptive, says Baz Bamigboy Daily Mail. Intelligent and brilliant, a must-see movie. Event, Mail on Sunday.
It's very peculiar. Secrets between you, God, the devil and the dead.
Starring Helen Mirren and Ian McKellen. The Good Liar. In cinemas Friday. Book tickets now. Certificate 15.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
Good morning, Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys. A touch on the top stories this morning. WADA to investigate all athletes who trained with band coach Alberto Salazar. Pharaoh's old samples may be retested. Klopp dismisses Pep's claims that Sadio Mane is a diver. West Brom beat managerless Stoke City 2-0 to go top of the Championship. And England collapse against New Zealand in T20. New Zealand make it 2-1 lead. Oh, take a 2-1 lead in a 5-match series. Also, Gomez, the surgery goes extremely well and Spurs are to appeal Son's red card. I am here with Mr. Patrick Christys, here with you all the way until 10 a.m. Patrick?
Yes, morning, Rich. So lots going on today. We have some games of football tonight, of course, Chelsea, Ajax. There's also a war of words starting to take place between Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp that we're going to talk about. And Mo Farah, the net may well be closing in for our Olympic hero. Mo Farah's previous samples, historic samples, including those relating to London 2012 Olympics, are going to be retested by WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency.
We're going to be talking about it a lot this morning, aren't we?
We are, I think. And I think it's well, look, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But I think athletics has been on a precipice for a while, a bit like cycling. And it just feels like, not necessarily in the case of Mo Farah, but certainly maybe with other cases and with other athletes as well, it just feels like maybe we're on the brink of finding out something that I think deep down we might have always known.
Yeah, well, look, obviously the Nike CEO quit just weeks after the Salazar...
No, sorry, mate, he didn't quit, right? I know it says that he quit, but he didn't quit.
What happened?
He became the chief exec.
Well, the way I understand it is that he quit, and very fortunately a job came up, which I'm assuming he applied for,
and got
within minutes.
Within minutes. It's the fastest job application to approval process that I've ever seen.
I mean, sometimes you get lucky in life, right?
It's the type of efficiency, right, that you normally see from Jurgen Klopp.
Yes.
Right, but this was ruthless. It was savage. It was like the blitzkrieg of appointments.
Of course. So, right, this is going to happen. This is going to happen over the next weeks, months. Because my guess now, this story has been rumbling since Salazar got found guilty. Every day, every couple of days, there's something in the papers that's discussing this in a little bit more detail. Now they've made the decision to actually do this. That's the question. Like, surely it can happen quite swiftly. Because it's not just Mo Farah. You touched on a few of the different athletes that are going to be under suspicion, given how many did so well under Salazar. You know, he's a fantastic coach.
Yeah, he's brilliant. He was world class at what he did, wasn't he? I mean, it was fantastic. You know, he actually coached the Roadrunner.
Did he?
Yeah,
literally the Roadrunner.
Before that, he wasn't. He was just a power walker.
Really?
And then Alberto Salazar got hold of him and.
Tasmanian Devil as well, I hear, was
big
one of his biggest success stories.
Absolutely was, yeah.
Although they couldn't really get him going one direction, which was part of the issue.
No, but he would have got if he'd just been given a bit more time.
Yeah. Anyone else? The tortoise and the hare? The tortoise. He kind of won that race.
No, I think we've probably gone this to death now, haven't we?
I think we have.
Yeah.
We could say that he worked with the tortoise.
Yeah, who he turned in to a hare. So Mo Farah, you imagine, is twitching a little bit this morning.
Well, if he's innocent, he's not.
Yes. So I imagine that. No, we don't know. We don't know. We will never know. But it obviously does beg the question again, what happens if? What happens if it turns out that he was? But then the flip side of it, I suppose, is this, isn't it? If there's some masking agent in one of his samples, or if there's just a banned substance, is there something to go, well, you know, I shared a flat with Alberto Salazar, which he did, in the run-up to London Olympic Games, which he did, and I didn't know, you know, he'd make me dinner, or he'd make me a cup of tea, or he'd give me these special energy drinks. I didn't know what was in them. He was giving it to me.
But then, okay, let's say if we're allowed to do that as a hypothetical situation.
Completely hypothetical.
But if that is then the excuse, that wouldn't be good enough still, would it? I mean, people aren't going to buy that. No. So, I mean, look, we'll find out what happens in the...
But you know what would be interesting, right? If Mo Farah does turn out to have some dodgy samples, which, as yet, it's important to say Mo Farah has never failed a drugs test, okay? But if something comes out of this, at what point do the likes of Paula Radcliffe, Steve Cram at the BBC, Seb Coe, do they start going, oh, okay, all right, we're actually going to talk out about this now? Because it's been such a kind of a horrible closed shop on this, where you can just see what is going on before your eyes, and they're all burying their heads in the sand in a way that, personally, I find deplorable.
But it kind of kills the sport, doesn't it? If it does come out that there is some wrongdoing here, because it wouldn't just be Mo Farah. There's all these other athletes as well that have won medals, won golds under Salazar. It kills the sport.
But it's all the athletes that didn't win. It's all the clean athletes that will have come fourth, fifth, maybe even not got into the final. You know, and you think, well, that's something that can never be replaced. You can always go and give them a gold medal. Ewan Thomas, who does a show here on a Friday, obviously at the weekend, he was presented with a gold medal in a car park in Birmingham 8 years after he won, because the US team eventually admitted doping. And you think, it didn't mean anything to him. He just put it in the boot of his car and drove home. He's like, all right. You know, you can't replicate that feeling of winning.
At least the car park in London.
Exactly. At least go beyond the Watford Gap, mate.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Making him go all the way to Birmingham just to get a gold medal.
An Audi car park.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Keep it classy. Yeah, no, I'll meet you at the Netto.
Yeah. They've just set up a little podium there in the Audi car park just
like an upturned crate.
Yeah.
Just one guy like presses a boombox, the national anthem plays. Press it again. Right, Ewan. See you next week, mate.
Can we get a photo of Ewan? It's an old 3310.
Yeah, no, but actually he describes it as one of the worst moments of his life.
Does he really?
Yeah, that makes you feel awful now, doesn't it?
That really does, and I feel really, really bad.
The war of words is hotting up between Pep and Jurgen.
Well, is it, or is this just the papers creating something? This isn't Wenger, Ferguson. This isn't Mourinho and every other manager on the planet. This just feels a little bit, I don't know, they're good friends.
So, Liverpool, I didn't realise this, have become the first English club to play in 400 international games.
Wow.
Yeah, so I haven't played their first in 1964. And they're obviously taking on Genk tonight at Anfield, Genk. And that's at 8 p.m. I can't say that properly.
No, it's not a particularly pleasant name, is it?
Sounds like something you cough up.
Well, it sounds like gunk.
Yeah.
It sounds like a few other things.
Sorry, Doctor, I'm getting a bit of gank around my knee.
Is there anything you can do about this? Any tablets?
But just out of interest, how is your breakfast going, listeners? So that is kind of hotting up. This is this kind of almost title-deciding six-pointer that takes place at the weekend. But yeah, Liverpool, just proud European history, of course. Like I said, they're taking on Genk tonight, 8 p.m. at Anfield. The most international matches, Liverpool, then guess who's second? It's an English club.
Manchester United.
Manchester United, not too far behind, 379. Then...
Oh, go on.
Arsenal.
Oh, okay, that's pretty obvious.
Then...
How are we going to keep playing this?
We're going to do two more.
Okay, because I think there's a surprise package in there somewhere. So Arsenal or Chelsea?
Yeah, then...
Spurs.
Yeah, well done.
There's no surprise packages. I thought you were going to produce
Next one's Leeds.
Oh, okay, there you go. That would have been... Because, of course, back in the day, Leeds was so good for a short period of time before they spent too much money.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be a lesson to your Leeds.
There you go, Leeds, who are on their way back up, by the way, looking good this season, although not as good as West Brom, who are looking very good. Good win last night. Also want to touch on the fact that Gomez has had his surgery. It went very well, extremely well, according to the surgeon, which is good news. And Son is going to appeal his red card.
Yo, good. Oh, well, what's a day? What a day this is.
After such a bad weekend of sport, after all of our London clubs in the Championship lost, after England lost in the rugby, I see we've not got any rugby today, which I'm kind of pleased with because it depressed me a little bit yesterday. But after all that, finally things are turning around, Patrick.
They are, and there's calls for Lewis Hamilton to be made Sir after he won his 6th Formula One title.
He touched on the fact that he's had his most difficult year to date, which isn't the biggest surprise given some of the comments we've heard from him recently. I would say he doesn't seem like he is the happiest he's ever been.
Well, he isn't. He said that he's been battling demons, and that was, I think, pretty obvious, as you said, Rich, when he tweeted something, I don't really kind of feel why I should go on anymore, this kind of stuff, and he kind of wraps it up a little bit in the whole environment thing, but I think that was kind of masking what was clearly quite a miserable bloke, really, behind the scenes.
He was giving that impression, wasn't he? Certainly the message he put out not so long ago, which was soon deleted, I believe, where he's obviously going through a few things mentally, it appears. But
he said every year you go through a different roller coaster ride of emotions. Each and every single one of us is struggling with something in life.
Yeah.
Well, it's not wrong, I suppose, is it?
There you go. But by the way, I kind of feel he's one, and this is said by a lot of people, he doesn't really get the credit he deserves, and partly the argument will always be that he's not the most likeable of characters.
I think that, but then I thought about this because I saw the thing saying was like, calls for Lewis Hamilton to be made Sir, right? And I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute, we've got Sir Andy Murray, haven't we? Now, fair play, what he has done throughout his career has been magnificent, but Lewis Hamilton's achieved more, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's a no-brainer. This is the one as well, right? Is that I suppose we want, or everybody wants, that perfect package where you've got someone who's the incredible sportsman and alongside it is a big character, good on camera, gives the sound bites you want. Well, you seem really pleased with yourself right now.
Have you got talking about me?
I mean, it said sportsman.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said absolute legend.
You look like you've never played a sport. Not even.
That's why I'm so good at it, mate. You never expect this.
Is that right? It's the surprise package. Is that what they call you?
Yeah, that's the nickname.
The nickname, the surprise package, Patrick Christys. Yeah. It's great that you're on a sports show and we're talking about so many sportsmen and women, and literally
to be mentioned in the same breath, actually, as Lewis Hamilton and Mo Farah. It's an honour.
Not for them. No. How is the weight training going? Have you?
I'm still putting it on. Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. Still packing it on.
We should do a gym session soon. I'd really enjoy that.
All right.
Yeah, that'd be quite a fun thing for us to do. I think we should film it and put it on Love Sports Twitter. I think that could be quite fun. What were we talking about?
Lewis
Hamilton. He should be a Sir.
Yes, 100%. I think he should be a Sir.
No, so my point was going to be that, in that, do you know what? He might not necessarily be, because he's quite chilled. In fact, he's incredibly chilled. So when he's on camera, he doesn't come across as being passionate about what he does because it's just his personality. But then I think we easily can read into that as to, I don't know, some of the comments that are made about him, that he might be arrogant or he might be kind of see himself above. That's not necessarily the case. There's a lot of people that have just got that demeanour, got that persona. And I think some of the things he's writing, he's obviously a good person. Like, he wants good things. He's a bit confused at times, but he's obviously a good person.
Well, yeah.
And he's incredible at what he does.
But this is it. And also, he's broken down boundaries. I don't want to sound like some kind of bleeding heart liberal here or anything, but his own father now is quoted in the Times as saying they didn't have people like us in the sport. Well, no, it's because they were pretty much the only black family that was at the karting events and at the Formula, the lower level Formula events, and obviously getting up to Formula One. Yeah, that is in itself a massive achievement. A huge achievement. They weren't rich as well. Like, they got there purely off the basis of his own exceptional talent and broke down boundaries. That alone should be enough to warrant you some kind of honour, let alone winning, 6 world championships. Just incredible stuff. And as his dad says, he's remained grounded, which he has now because he's sold his private jet.
Yeah, there you go. Could he become... Because obviously he is an athlete. I always find it a bit weird when you discuss an athlete. Like,
I know what you mean.
An F1 driver...
Because you think he just sits down.
Yeah, but you have to be incredibly fit
You
to
do.
So if he ends up winning a couple more and he takes Schumacher's record, he wins the 8, does he then become one of the greatest ever athletes?
Look, I think so. I do think there is a real thing with Lewis Hamilton where he doesn't quite get enough credit. That said, though, he doesn't really live here anymore. So maybe that's got something to do with it. If he's pictured like a lot of footballers are, they're more accessible, aren't they? I think.
Yeah.
And you see them, and also with things like football, you feel like you know them a bit better. I think.
Yeah.
Whereas with Lewis Hamilton, he is just distant, and you see him with his helmet on, and he, razzing it around a racetrack once every couple of weeks, and that's kind of it, really.
Well, interestingly, our producer Mark obviously lives very close to where Lewis Hamilton grew up.
Monaco.
Yes. Stevenage.
Oh.
Stevenage. And
Well, they say it's the Monaco of the South, don't they?
who says that exactly?
I think it's in a like a tourist guide, isn't it?
Yeah. Sir Patrick Christys, is that one we're going to aim for?
Yes.
I mean, because you've not been in like any scandals involving Salazar.
Not for at least a week.
No. So look, I'm putting you forward. How does it work? Is it
not like that?
No. Can we not like vote? Can we not put a petition together? Is it not?
Love Sport. Listen to Love Sport Radio on your smartphone today. Simply download the free Love Sport app from the App Store or Google Play. Tap the play button and you'll be able to listen to your favourite station. Anytime, anywhere. Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
Hi, I'm Dean. I work for a successful shipping company in Suffolk. Ever since I heard about people's success with the spokesmansaid.com, I knew I had to investigate for myself. Every time I need to compare car insurance, home insurance and energy bills, I always contact a spokesmansaid.com. This year alone, I saved over £260 on my car insurance and also £585 on my energy bills. I saved big through a spokesmansaid.com, and you could too.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Whoa! Look how much saturated fat is in these chocolate biscuits. It's surprising how much is in our food and drinks. For us kids, eating too much saturated fat can lead to harmful fat building up inside, which we can't see, increasing the risk of heart disease or stroke when we get older. So be food smart. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app and start making healthier choices today.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. All better.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast. Now, there's some big games going on tonight in the Champions League. Of course, a couple involving our British clubs. Liverpool taking on Genk, Chelsea taking on Ajax. Delighted to say we've got James Rowe, Dutch football expert, on the line to talk about Chelsea-Ajax. Morning, James.
Good morning, fellas. How are you both?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Hope you're well. There's an interesting fixture, this. Of course, Chelsea getting the better of Ajax last time out. How do you see this one playing out?
I think it will be a very interesting game. I think Ajax will take a lot of heart from the home leg, even though they lost. and with the chances they created, and I think they're going to London full of confidence, and they believe that they can get a positive result.
Well, yeah, no, look, absolutely, certainly. It's 39 years since Ajax last lost in England, which is an incredible stat, really, when you think about it. How are Ajax holding up? Because clearly they lost a couple of their big players over the summer. Have they managed to replace them?
Well, they're doing very well in terms of the league, and in terms of the Eredivisie. They're currently top, 6 points ahead of second place AZ Alkmaar. And the Quincy Promes signing from Sevilla has been a good buy. You know, he scored I believe 8 goals so far this season in 12 games, and provides a great outlet with his pace. And the youth is always the lifeblood of the club. You know, obviously with Matthijs de Ligt and Frenkie de Jong both leaving, people were from the outside looking in, thought, oh, how would they cope? Would it be okay? But under the tutelage of Erik ten Hag, they're very well prepared, both on and off the pitch in terms of personnel. And they're doing okay.
Well, you mentioned they're flying in the Dutch league. That's, like you said, 6 points clear. They've won however many it is now in a row. They haven't lost yet this season. Looks like they're going to be very comfortable. Who are the next players coming through? Because it feels like every season with Ajax, and they had a period of time where this wasn't necessarily the case, but it certainly is again now, where every season they seem to unearth another one. Have they got some youngsters coming through that are worth keeping an eye on?
Well, just to give people a bit of background information, you mentioned about the time when that wasn't the case. That was mainly down to incisiveness at board level. And now they have, with the likes of Van der Sar and Overmars, who both played for the club and fully understand what the club is all about, they've managed to get that back on the rails. And it's just about letting the players coming bit by bit. I mean, obviously you see with there's much... Obviously, Donny van der Beek, he came in and he's got a huge presence now, and he's linked with a move away. And it's I think, but at the moment with Ten Hag, it's more about the settled side and the spine of the team. It's in terms of looking forward to the future at the moment.
Well, obviously, January coming up, and there's a few players you've touched on there. Are they likely to hold on to these players in the January window?
I think so. These players, they very much enjoy winning. And it's about winning trophies, and Ajax have a fantastic opportunity to win another domestic double and make progress in Europe. And I'm sure you've both seen the media reports linking that Ten Hag with the vacant Bayern Munich position. Ten Hag gave an interview to the Dutch media outlet Veronica before his press conference last night, upon which he said that he doesn't envisage leaving halfway through the season. He wants to stay this season and win trophies, and you know, he has a lot of confidence in his team. I think these players are aware they're onto something special, and there's a real good togetherness about the group and about the backroom staff as well. Everybody's pulling in the same direction. So I think it's unlikely we'll see departures in January.
And Daley Blind, another changed player since his return. Obviously didn't quite work out at United, I think it's fair to say, but he looks a real deal again.
Yeah, I think you see what confidence can do to a player. I mean, I remember when he first came on the scene and was loaned out to Groningen, and you know, people were saying, oh, obviously with his father being quite famous, you know, will he follow in his footsteps? But I think he wanted to return to Amsterdam. I was at the game where he came back and made his debut against Sturm Graz in the Champions League qualifiers last year, and the reception that he got from the fans was very much one of a homecoming. And you see how someone's fully aware of, you know, being brought up in the environment of Ajax and what the club means, how comfortable they are to be back home in that respect.
And the manager, getting a bit of interest from Bayern Munich, but he says he's not going to leave.
No, not mid-season, no. But I think if he's offered the Bayern Munich job in the summer, perhaps, I think he may well leave. Ten Hag, by his own admission, he wants to return to Germany. He was the manager of the second team of Bayern Munich between 2013 and 2015, when Bayern Munich were led by Guardiola. And he was very comfortable, very happy there. And he's made no secret of the fact he wishes to return to Germany and hopefully manage a big club in the Bundesliga. You can't really get any bigger than Bayern Munich in that respect.
That's very true. James, really appreciate you joining us today. That's James Rowe, Dutch football expert, giving us his thoughts on... it's a tricky one, this one, for Chelsea tonight, you feel.
It is, and there's just that very impressive stat, isn't there? 39 years since Ajax last lost in England. 2-0 to Brian Clough's Nottingham Forest in the European Cup semi-final in April 1980. Frank Lampard, for his part, by the way, has been talking about the fact that because Chelsea have appealed this transfer ban that they've got, which seems a little bit pointless, but if it's lifted, he's come out and gone, I will buy new players.
Yeah, and then I know there's certain Chelsea fans that are saying, no, don't. I really like what's going on. Keep the youth.
Yeah, I think it's probably more a message to his own players, I would have thought, which is that if this band's lifted, you're all replaceable. You know, you're playing now, make sure you keep up this level.
Yeah, well, I think if you look at the Chelsea team, they're not far off. Well, in fact, I watched them at the weekend, and they're certainly not far off. I would say a City. The bit for me is a naivety at the moment, and it'd be interesting. Again, we'll be speaking Chelsea further in the show, but there's a slight naivety still. But I watch the way in which they play technically, the players they've got, the way in which they manipulate the ball, and the way in which they break through the line. So, a good example the other day, they're keeping the ball in their own box with such quality. From Kepa, the centre backs are so comfortable on the ball. They're doing little triangles in their own box, and when they break the press, every time they were in against the Watford's back line. Now, Watford weren't great, but when you've got that kind of ability, you just feel that they've got the potential to be a City or a Liverpool. The bit where I still think there's a little bit of naivety, some of the decision making, of course, they are younger players, and there is still that little bit of naivety where I think they concede too many at the moment. But if they figure that out, then no, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. Here's another one that you mentioned, a nice stat about Ajax, never losing in England.
Yeah.
However, Chelsea have a 100% win record in the Champions League against Dutch opponents.
Oh.
Something has to give, Patrick.
Oh.
Something has to give.
Exactly. Wow, that is, tell you what, it's two good stats. So just for a little bit of grounding, if people have been living on the moon with their fingers in their ears, Chelsea are unable to sign any players until February 2020 after FIFA found them guilty of breaching 150 rules involving the signing of 69 minors. Now, look, it's obviously they're not allowed to make any signings, but they do have an impressive tunnel network underneath the pitch.
Indeed. Just a quick one, a slight aside, but Cardiff face a 3-window transfer ban if they do not pay the Salah transfer fee. This has come out, which, I mean, it's such a mess. It's still obviously going on. Horrendous.
I can remember coming in, we weren't doing a show together at the time. When the Salah thing happened, and coming in, I think you were doing the show before mine.
Yeah,
I remember you and I having a chat outside, and you saying, "Look, like obviously it's a bit too soon to talk about this, but someone's got to pay for what's happened, both financially and for that, really."
I feel bad, but you're right. Within literally, as soon as it came out when he was missing, I think we all had a feeling as to where it was going to end up, and. Yeah, I said on day one, it's horrible because you just knew it's like you're going to have, it's always the same thing. You'll have that period of where you're almost not allowed to talk about it because it's so sudden and it's so sad. But at some point, that's going to be an issue. And exactly as it has, and unfortunately for Cardiff, it's not worked in their favour. They've got to pay Nantes a £5.2 million instalment, which they haven't done, as far as we're aware. I mean, it is what it is. It's horrendous because it's a conversation you don't want to be having on the back of something like this.
And it is, look, it's terrible all round, obviously. But now Cardiff, let's be honest, not the biggest club in the world. They're not bad, but they're not the biggest club in the world. You know, what is that? A 3-year or 3-window transfer ban there. Fine potentially as well. Yeah. What happens to that club, really? You know, and
it could destroy them.
It could destroy them for one play. Now, but again, I can't get over the fact you put what was it, a £15 million asset. In a plane flown by a bloke who doesn't have a license to fly it at night in those conditions. What's going on?
This would have been, and I know this was discussed a lot of the time, the way that I saw it would have been simply they needed to get him in the country, or they wanted to get him in the country that night, and there was obviously a rush to it. But you're right, you actually look at the details, but this will happen, this is the point though, it will happen hundreds of times that we will never ever have known about, because more often than not, it would be absolutely fine. But there's so many, and I think what it has, though, it's been a wake-up call for a lot of clubs to appreciate that, you know, this could happen again. Now, God forbid it does, because it was horrendous, but it could. And unfortunately for Cardiff, like you look at it purely from a business point of view, from the club point of view, he was a player brought in to help save them in the Premier League. Now, of course, not only did they not get safety, they were very close, gave it a good go. You wonder whether Salah might have made that difference, by the way, because it wasn't tens of points, it was a few points, if that. So you wonder whether that could have made that. It's just amazing. A moment like this could, and we'll see in 5 years' time as to what trajectory Cardiff end up going on. If in 5 years' time they're a League One, League Two club, we'll see the full impact of what this has actually done.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Well, look, we'll have to wait and see. I think it's, well, clearly it's a devastating state of affairs. Yeah, it's one of those where as well it's going to be very difficult to pin the blame on a single individual, because when you saw it, who was essentially on the payroll of the Salah signing, it was a load of people, and the Mail did a piece on this at the time, and I'll dig it out for the end of the show, which is that they went through and there were about 5 or 6 people who had absolutely nothing to do with the transfer. They were either agents maybe already owed them money for various other things, and they were just on the payroll of this. And, you know, whether or not it's something like that that has contributed to this, whether or not he needed to be in the country at this particular time, or some money needed to be sent at this particular time, it could only happen once he started doing. We never quite know what's in all the small print of this stuff. Some weird stuff can happen, because this is a very strange situation that you would pay 15 million quid for somebody who you think is going to be the driving force to keeping you in the Premier League, and then you shove him on a rusty old tin can that, you know, is flown by a bloke called David Ibbotson who just simply wasn't able to fly that aircraft at that particular time. It just smells really bad, the whole thing. It really does.
It does indeed. Well, look, we're going to be touching on some front pages. We will be speaking to Rob, our rugby fan in Japan. For those that didn't hear the story, we've had him on a couple of times. So the most bizarre story actually made a couple of the papers, where he was slightly inebriated, out with some friends, watched England beat New Zealand, got super excited and booked himself a flight to Japan without considering the fact that he needs a ticket for the game, for the final, without considering the fact that he needs accommodation, and even and also without considering the fact he just had major knee surgery.
Yeah.
And it's quite a long flight
He's
to Japan.
6'4".
Yes.
And he was sat in economy with no leg room.
Fantastic. And a connection as well. Don't forget the connection.
Connected flight.
Yeah.
What a lad.
We're going to be talking to him in about 15 minutes. It's 29 minutes to 8.
This is Love Sport.
Hi, my name's Bob. I'm a retired civil servant from Durham. I used the advice that a spokesman said gave me to haggle with Sky to reduce my monthly payments from £86 per month to £43 per month, which was a saving of £774 over the 18-month contract. A nice little result, if I say so myself, but it was only due to a spokesman said on his brilliant advice that I was able to do a deal for the new contract.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident, and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Right, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
Exercise. It doesn't have to mean Lycra or a fancy gym membership. All you need is 10 minutes and you. Because a regular 10-minute brisk walk is a great way to get more active. Whether that's walking to the shops or getting off the bus to stop early. Picking up the pace and getting your heart pumping can make a real difference to your health. So, to see how much brisk walking you're doing and how you can fit more into your day, download the free Active 10 app, because there's only one you.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast. We're going to go through some front pages now. We haven't done that today, and we like to touch on it. As much as we are a sports show, we like to touch on the front pages because we have the... Can I say you're the best at this kind of stuff?
Mate.
What would the title be? What title would you want for this particular...
News Supremo.
News Supremo. Patrick Christys, that's what we've got. we need a theme tune.
It's the worst superhero ever. Hey, have you read the news?
What is your superpower, News Supremo?
Oh, always picking the best front page, Richard.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What have you got today?
Don't try this at home. Warning over Joker's lit firework prank. So a bonfire idiot who was filmed having a rocket launched from his backside has been wrapped by security experts last night. The Royal Society for the Prevention of Accidents.
What, the Royal... Wait a second, there's so many parts of this story.
Royal
Royal Society for the Prevention of Ridiculous Accidents.
Yeah.
What the... So talk to me, what's he done?
Can you imagine the comment that the Sun have had to go to them with? Hi, is this the Royal Society for the Prevention of Accidents? Yes, it is, yes. Well, look, I'm hoping there's something you can help me with. Okay, what is it? A bloke, right, has fired a rocket out of the crack in his backside. What do you reckon of that? It doesn't take a... Oh, no, they've really hammed up for this.
Go on, what have they gone for?
It doesn't take a bright spark to know not to toy with fireworks.
Right, okay.
They've got the money there, haven't they? Right.
So when we talk about front pages, we are talking front pages of the Sun.
That is literally the front page of the Sun.
The front page of the Sun. Everything going on in the world, and the
Right.
front page of the Sun is someone with a rocket up there.
I want to talk to you about this.
Go on.
Right, the McDonald's chief has been sacked, right, for essentially having a consensual sexual relationship with a colleague, okay? He's been given a £6 million payoff after a fling with the worker. 3 billion quid was wiped off the shares last night as a result of this guy. He's quite an incredible character, actually. Stephen Easterbrook, he's known as. It's because it's his name. And he started out as a manager in McDonald's 25 years ago. Now he runs the thing. Well, he did run the thing.
Yeah.
But I find this absolutely ridiculous, right? The idea that you can't just sleep with a co-worker now without getting sacked.
Don't wink at me. Don't wink at me when you say... You just winked at me when you said that. That was really odd. That was really awkward.
You're not my bag.
Okay, I hope I'm not.
You're not. No offence.
No.
No. But this series...
I could do better.
No, but I'm not... Wow.
Anyway.
I just think this is absolutely ridiculous. Okay, he's an adult. The woman involved is an adult, crucially, and they've got a contract apparently that says okay, you're not allowed to have consent to have any kind of sex with somebody who is below you in the structure of the company. Okay, but this begs the question: what if Burger Flipper starts going out with Burger Flipper? Right? They're doing the old, love-making stuff.
Yeah.
And then one Burger Flipper gets promoted to, I don't know, head of milkshakes. Right? And then what happens? The power dynamic is completely gone.
Well, then you're hoping at the same time the other Burger Flipper also gets a promotion to head of milkshakes.
You can't both be head of milkshakes, mate.
True. What if the other one gets promoted to head of fries?
Head of fries, yeah, but then I'd say fries are more important than milkshakes. And this is the endless merry-go-round of sexual misery the McDonald's colleagues have to endure on a daily basis. So I think this is absolutely ridiculous. I think one of the perks of the job is being able to have sex with your co-workers, and I think this is absolutely nuts that we should not be allowed to do this. It is bonkers.
Do you think he lured her with McDonald's? Do you think he gave her any particular burgers?
I don't know. Do you reckon he quarter pounder? So that's enough of that, apparently. A cease and desist from our producer. Sorry, everyone.
Oh, love a quarter pounder with cheese.
I do as well.
Yeah.
But seriously though, I find this absolutely bonkers. Okay, because it is just ridiculous that you can't engage in a consensual sexual relationship with someone. There doesn't seem to be any indication whatsoever that he's given her a leg up. Easy now. And McDonald's have essentially said that we are willing to forego £3 billion just to kind of uphold our moral compass here. Now, I'm not being funny, mate, but I don't have a moral compass to begin with. And if you offer me £3 billion, I definitely wouldn't have a moral compass. But I would like the fact that I really hope that tomorrow, like the Telegraph or someone does an interview with the person involved, with the other person. And it is just like a blacked out silhouette, and you just see like Ronald McDonald's wig, like really massive shoes. Like, and then he touched me.
You've got such a weird imagination, Mr. Christys. Will this?
It wasn't so much of a happy meal.
Right, so this has actually turned into quite a big story, hasn't it, over the last few days? Because I guess there's a lot of different questions to be asked. What then happens now with McDonald's? Obviously, they'll go somewhere else. He, I assume, will then go to another company. And it sounds like he obviously, they are a couple, aren't they?
He's already done well at another company. He left McDonald's after a while and went to Pizza Express. Of course, I think that's now not doing that well, but it was doing well when he was there. And then he went back in. It is an incredible story, actually. To be perfectly honest with you, I look at this guy, Steve Easterbrook, and I think, you started out, mate, he's British, by the way, started out 25 years ago. You walked into that McDonald's the first time, you probably had riddled with acne, really greasy hair, like one of those hair nets that just make you look like a kind of Poundland dinner lady. And he's in there, and then 25 years later, he's running the place. I think he's earned the right, Rich. I think he's earned the right to sleep with a colleague.
There you go. What do you think? 0208 70 20 558. Anything sporting or
No.
related to anything?
Absolutely not.
Anything else going on the
No.
front pages?
Nothing.
No, nothing at all.
Let's find some other news. There's one thing just out of interest, just returning to the Sun's front page, which, despite the fact, of course, that Africa's still got a lot of issues. The Middle East, total mess, a car crash of a mess actually. You've got the Turks invading the Kurds, invading the Syrians, Russia involved. There's Brexit issues, as we know. There's a general election on.
So they've chosen one of them, I assume.
Yeah. No, they've. This is just a follow-on from the "Don't Try This at Home" story, which includes a picture of a man with a firework inserted in his bottom. And then if you turn to page 7, you've got a still frame slideshow of the firework rocketing off. I think NASA need to look into this.
Do you think?
I think so.
What
This
reason?
is clearly a more efficient launching technique than anything that they've used.
Indeed. And there's some... do you want to read some of the classic lines from The Sun?
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, what, in terms of...
Like, up for the crack.
Yeah.
Bonfire night.
They've just gone for dipstick. Rocket dope. Dipstick.
He's all right, I assume.
I've shot my pants.
There you go. I take it he's okay.
Yeah, well,
he didn't have any major burns, or we're not too
the
sure.
Sun literally didn't stop to ask.
We didn't really focus on that.
No need. We have a new Speaker of the House of Commons, by the way, and I can talk about this because he's got nothing to do with the general election.
Which way are you voting again?
I'm not allowed to tell you.
Okay, sorry.
This
New
really
Speaker.
Can I just take a quick moment to say to Ofcom how ridiculous this is, right?
Not that you're not allowed to.
Right. If you turn on the television now, I'm looking at Michael Gove. Sir Keir Starmer has just been on. I've had a procession of politicians all trying to outdo each other with different sized poppies, right? And if you turn on, turn on your phone, go on the news sites, it's riddled with stuff. There's no objectivity here. No one's trying to be objective. No. Everyone's trying to basically tell you here which way to vote.
So then when it comes to your thoughts, you're going to have to just be really conservative with what you say.
Oh, stop it.
With a small c. With
Don't
a small
labour
c.
the point. Don't labour the point. All right? You Lib Dem. So I'm not... But right, a political journalist, I'm not allowed to sit here and talk to you about politics during a general election.
Yeah, it's insane.
What's the point of that? Anyway, we've got a new speaker. He's called Sir Lindsay Hoyle.
Okay.
That's that.
Anything more about this particular character?
No.
Okay.
Not at all. I don't want to go to prison again.
Fantastic.
Ridiculous.
They give you a decent cell, though, right, at least? When you go there.
Yeah, it's all right, yeah.
Well, they call it a blue collar, is that right?
Yeah. No, it's good. It's padded.
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. Anything else you want to talk about on the front pages
Not
right
on
now?
the front pages. Let's do some sport.
Let's do it. Let's just touch on the T20. England not so good in the cricket, losing 2-1 now in the series to New Zealand. A collapse, which is, I said collapse, lost by 14 runs, but actually in the T20, that's actually quite a lot.
Yeah, it's about an over's worth.
Yeah, so not particularly good at the moment. What do you think? You think a bit of a come down?
I think that's what it is, mate. I think that's what it is. We've got a lot of talent. Andrew Strauss was interviewed yesterday, actually, on Sky, and I heard him say that traditionally, in the shorter version of the game, we've not done that well when we've travelled. Like most Brits, really. We don't do that well abroad.
No.
So he's saying that's something we need to work on, but he says this is a historic problem. And also it is, in his opinion anyway, directly related to the fact that we peaked. We were at the top of Everest with the Cricket World Cup, and now I know this is a different format of 2020, but it's just hard to get up for anything after you've done that.
Yeah, well, actually, we were cruising, has to be said. We were cruising, chasing 181. We were 139 for 2 with 31 balls remaining, so looking pretty comfortable at that point. But then we lost 5 wickets for 10 runs in 18 balls.
Wow.
Yeah, kind of killed us a little bit, that.
Yeah, that's not a great performance.
We're going to be hearing from Andrew Strauss actually lately because he was on Posh Boys on Drive yesterday afternoon, so we'll be listening to
Can we
that
start
later.
a petition, by the way, for Posh Boys on Drive that they have to wear a tuxedo every single day?
That'd be awesome.
Because they came in for their promotional pictures for the show, which are lovely, and it is a wonderful show. I say you should tune into it every single day, as do I. But you should. I think we should start a petition that they have to wear a tuxedo every single day. It's called Posh Boys on Drive, mate.
Yeah.
Right. At the minute, you wouldn't know how posh these two are. They are really posh.
Oh,
You wouldn't know how posh they are.
No.
There's no way of knowing. Put a tuxedo on.
Okay, I'd feel a bit jealous, though, if they've got an outfit and we haven't got an outfit.
What would our outfit be?
I don't know, because I feel like we need to wear the same thing so that there's some like uniformity there. It might bring us closer. Like, 'cause we've got this whole issue at the moment that we're kind of not dealing with, the elephant in the room, and I'm not talking about you. So we've kind of got that to deal with at the moment. So you just feel that maybe actually wearing the same outfit might be a way in which it could bring us closer together.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
You could keep me on reins like a naughty child.
Okay, now it's getting weird.
Okay.
Shall we talk to Rob in a minute, our rugby fan in Japan?
Absolutely. So, look, we are going to speak to this guy, right? He had 5 pints. He decided after, at the pub watching England beat New Zealand heroically, and he decided, right, that's it. I'm off to Japan. Didn't have a ticket to the final. Managed to get hold of some, but they didn't arrive at his house in time, so he had to just go to Japan and hope he got some. We aren't quite sure yet whether or not he did manage to get some. He had a shattered knee. It was a bit of a nightmare, to be honest, for this guy. So he didn't have anywhere to stay. So we're going to find out all about that. Also, just to fill you in case you've missed it, Mo Farah's old historic samples may well be retested. This is according to the World Anti-Doping Agency. It comes after his coach, Alberto Salazar, of course, was banned from the sport for doping offences. Lewis Hamilton has revealed that he's been battling demons, and there are calls for him to be made a Sir after he won his 6th Formula One world title. We're also going to be looking ahead to Liverpool Genk this evening, and of course Chelsea Ajax.
Fantastic. So yeah, Rob will be coming up next. We'll find out if it's a happy ending. Do you hope it's a happy ending?
Yes.
14 minutes to 8.
Giving your team the coverage they deserve. Love Sport Radio.
Hello, I'm Tim from Bolsover. I'm a retired teacher. I was looking for a better electricity deal from my parents when I got an email from a spokesman said it was a fixed deal for 2 years, which was better for my parents, less for them to worry about. And when I had a look at the sums, I had to recheck because I couldn't quite believe it. They were going to save over £900 each year they were on that deal. Needless to say, we signed up pretty quickly.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
I love my brother. We do fun things like playing together. I like having hugs with Freddie. Freddie gives the best hugs. Freddie used to be very poorly, and the doctor said he might need a new liver. Then one day, a very nice person gave their liver to Freddie. It was amazing. We were so happy. Now he's around to give me more hugs than ever.
Tell your family you want to save lives. To find out more, visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
Love Sport.
That's what breakfast me, Richard Lee Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Oh, we're going to be talking to Rob shortly, our rugby fan in Japan. Oh,
you know you didn't get away with that at all.
I didn't get away with that
because the mic was on, so people heard you giggling like a schoolgirl and then trying to do it really serious.
Deadpan.
Love Sport breakfast.
Love Sport breakfast.
This is the news at 10.
Yeah, indeed. We're going to be speaking to Rob shortly. Before we do, I want to touch on a couple of stories. Wally Downs, I just want to touch on very quickly. There's a story in the back of one of the papers that Wimbledon fans are pulling together to build a fund and give Wally Downs a thank you, because he's obviously left the club, and it was all a bit, I don't know, he made a few small bets. One of the bets was like £1.11 on something, you know,
on women's football.
So like they weren't big. There was like 12 bets over the period of however many years. Anyway, he ends up getting the sack, gross misconduct, I believe, which means he will have left with probably nothing. You probably know more. I mean, you've had this a few times. What happens? Do they just not give you anything?
Well, if you get done for gross misconduct, that's basically you cooked, mate.
That's you done.
Yeah.
Game over.
You can fight it, but then you end up paying their legal costs as well.
Right.
And that really is a kicker.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Did you fight it or?
Did fight it. Yeah. I'm actually from Poland.
Right.
So I just legged it over here. They haven't found me yet.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
okay.
good stuff.
Happy ending.
Do you reckon Wally Downs Jr. Wally Downs will just get the money and then go, I could double this.
Put it on red.
Put it on red. Let it ride!
Oh, man, not again.
All right, we go again.
Right. So anyway, they're putting together this fund for which I think is a really nice thing from the Wimbledon fans.
Yeah,
that's a great
it
thing.
absolutely is.
Because I think it's massively unfair, especially after what he did last season. I know you probably shouldn't relate the two, but the fact that he did keep Wimbledon in the league, and they were gone. They were gone halfway through the season, kept them in League One. They're struggling a bit this season. Obviously, haven't had the best of starts, but it just felt a little bit. He's one of theirs, you know. He's been Wimbledon through and through for years. You just felt they might have treated him a bit better. So, anyway, that's my opinion. But the fact that the fans are pulling together, I like this. This feels good.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. It's nice. The fans love to see how much they managed to rustle up for him, of course. But yeah, look, I do think he was quite hard done by. There were a few offences, but like you said, Rich, one of them, £1.11 on a women's football game that he had no skin in that game. Look, that said, though, it was stupid, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
It was stupid.
Yeah.
And sometimes stupid actions have consequences.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, it's simple as that. You're right. Look, when you actually look at the black and white, it was, and that's it. And that's right. I just wonder, though, because it's, I don't know, like we're talking about Richard Keogh. That's another one I want to talk about as well, because I'm still annoyed about this whole Richard Keogh thing.
Oh, yeah.
But this coming back to whether it's legally okay. Same with Richard Keogh. Like, if he didn't wear his seatbelt, then I guess legally they do have grounds for, again, I don't know what the term was with Derby, but they have sacked him.
It was gross misconduct. They said it was gross misconduct for not wearing a seatbelt. Look, the fact...
But again,
if someone
both of these
wants you out, mate, if someone wants you out, they'd find a way.
And it seems like that. And Richard Keogh, there is actually a story again in the back of the papers saying that his agent's come out, hasn't he, saying that he feels gutted by this. He's made all the points we've made, 350-odd games for Derby County. Yeah. You know, he felt that he should have been family, should have been treated that much better. And he hasn't.
That's it, yeah. So Richard Keogh's agent was absolutely shocked when the defender was sacked by Derby. He's called Cos Tuffis. He revealed that Keogh was in a really bad way and his world has been shaken. And this is it. He's gone, he's just said, he's bled in that shirt. He's fought in that shirt. I think it's a really bad look. Let's just have this in its entirety. Derby arrange a team night out in the middle of the week at a bar cum club, right? They then lay on cars for their players to drive home, in a sense, legitimising drinking midweek. And then your captain, who wasn't driving home, right, but was in the passenger seat of two players who were drink driving, wasn't wearing a seatbelt. The car crashes, he injures his knee, is out for between a year and 18 months.
So even consider that. The fact that they had their cars at the venue, they were never getting in the team cars that were laid on. They drove to the venue. So they weren't ever getting the team cars home. They were always going to drive home, and he's decided to jump in with them as opposed to getting in one of the cars that were laid on. And as far as we're aware, the reason that he's been given the sack is that he didn't have a seatbelt on.
Yeah.
And ultimately,
but those two lads crashed those cars and ended up in court.
Crashed, ran away for a period of time, left him at the scene. Bleeding, and they've been given a 6-week fine. And what's the difference between all of them? Well, you've got one who's a 34-year-old who's now got a 14-month injury who will probably never play again. Hate to say it, but it's probably true. You've then got the two others whose crime was that much worse, but they have a huge market value. So they've ended up getting a small fine, and they will continue and have already continued playing, and they had no injuries.
What I will say to this, though, is as completely unfair as this, and I think this is a stain on Derby County, actually, this whole sorry thing, and actually it's ultimately... this is the club's fault because they shouldn't have done that, really. They shouldn't have arranged that to happen. And if they did, they should have had someone there, a manager or someone at least supervising to make sure this kind of stuff didn't happen. But it does go back to when I was younger, when I was, first started drinking or whatever, first started going out, 16, 17 years old, whatever. I can remember my parents always hammering it into me, don't get in the car with anyone who's had a drink. Yeah. And... to be honest with you, that is why I have unfortunately, a limited amount of sympathy. I feel for the guy. I think he's been treated horribly, right? But he got in the car with a bloke who he knew, he must have known to be drink driving because there were Snapchat clips of them throwing up in urinals and stuff like that. And if you do put yourself in that situation, sometimes stuff like this happens. Yeah. I'm really sorry about it, but it does.
So we're going to see how this ends up, I guess, over the next few weeks, because he is appealing, of course, and I think he's got the help of the PFA. He's got his lawyers on board to try and appeal this. But ultimately, the size of the contract we're led to believe is the best part of £3 million that he would have had remaining. They did offer him, they did offer him a reduced terms. Now, we're led to believe it was about 10% of what he was on. I don't know whether that has any impact on all this, because it's like, well, you obviously wanted to keep him, or you've kind of made like a very small gesture to keep him.
That's where I wonder whether or not he's going to win this, actually.
Well, I wonder, from Derby County's point of view, they probably think we've got nothing to lose, because if he ends up, we have to pay the full amount. Well, we're going to have to do that anyway. However, if they meet somewhere in the middle and ends up being like a £1.5 million payoff, or then Richard Keogh's not happy because he's still out of pocket, but then Derby County have saved money. But then the question for me would be, what damage does this do for Derby County's reputation to save maybe £1.5 million, which in the grand scheme of things, for a top championship club, is it that much money for the damage on the reputation?
No, and I think this sets a really dangerous precedent for not just that, well, yeah, them, because it's their own disciplinary policy, which is that when Wayne Rooney rocks up, right, and turns up to training and he's getting papped on his first day, and let's just say he's not wearing a seatbelt, do you sack him for gross misconduct? No, of course you don't. No. And that's the thing. If I was Richard Keogh and I was Richard Keogh's agent, I would be stood outside Derby's training ground every single day, taking pictures of everyone who's on the payroll at that club, driving in and out of that club, waiting for someone to not wear the seatbelt, ask the club if they're going to sack them, and then when they say no, you do them.
Yeah, and this way, in a weird way, this relates, because obviously the fact that he's then ended up getting the injury, if he doesn't get injured, they don't do this, by the way, but obviously the fact he's got injured, he's of no use to the first team at the moment, and if anything, they've got to pay all the medical bills, and they've got to look after him now for however long to rehabilitate him to get him fit, so...
But there's got to be a duty. You know, this guy's played 360 times for the club. He's captained the club. Derby are a good outfit, you know? They're pushing for promotion. They're doing the thing. Surely, this is the question. The club is not short of a bob or two. Look after the guy a bit.
Yeah. I fully agree. I fully agree. In a weird way, this relates, because it's ultimately it's what's ended up happening. The injury is the reason that he's got sacked, because he's of no use. Similarly, and this weirdly relates, slight tangent, but Son is appealing his red card, which... again, shouldn't have been a red card, yellow card, but of course the injury that Gomez sustained, thankfully it sounds like the surgery's been a big success, which is good news, but of course, because of what happened thereafter, and that's what the Premier League came out and said, by the way, straight away, was that it had more to do with the injury than the actual tackle, which again doesn't make sense. If you take the incident in the isolation, him not wearing a seatbelt, Richard Keogh, you take that in isolation, that's not a sackable offence, but of course what it then leads to, it means that actually you're of no use to our football club anymore, and it is as simple as that, and I just think it's... Well, I think it's horrendous. I mean, being involved in a club, and I made this point the other day, I think if you're a player, it's this kind of incident that just leads you to the thought of, people talk about loyalty towards a football club. You see something like this. This is why players, more often than not, have zero loyalty towards a football club, because they know they have to be mercenary to an extent, because something like this can happen.
I can't wait for Wayne Rooney to turn up at Derby.
3 minutes to 8.
Love sport.
Hi, I'm Marilyn from Oxfordshire. My current insurance company quoted £245.08 to reinsure, and a spokesman said, obtain me a price of £173.49 for the same cover. This was a fantastic saving for me, and next time my car insurance comes up for renewal, I will be going through a spokesman said. No doubt about that.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Driving too close to the car in front gives you less time to react. You may not realize that you're tailgating. Leave a 2-second gap between you and the vehicle in front. When it's wet, leave a 4-second gap. By staying back, you give yourself time to react. Stay safe. Stay back. Highways England, connecting the country.
How are you? How are you really? Modern life can be busy, and sometimes it's easier to look after others before looking after yourself. But there's only one you, and making small changes to your lifestyle now could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. So take the first step to a healthier you with our free How Are You quiz. See how you score and get personalised tips and support, from how to eat a little healthier to turning a 10-minute walk into exercise. Just search 1U.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply doesn't work. Even a quick look at a message, or firing off a quick reply, affects your concentration and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
Love Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys. We have got a big hour coming up. Patrick. You're not by a microphone, so there's no point in me talking to you right now. We've got Wayne Faraday coming up, who is former West Brom winger and QPR. West Brom, of course, top of the Championship after their 2-0 win over Stoke last night. Matt Phillips and Hal Robson-Kanu penalty. We're going to be talking to him about that. We've got David Booth. Right, so yesterday we had a little back and forth because I wasn't happy about seeing the horrific injury and you kept trying to show it to me because I don't really want to see it.
The Gomez injury?
That one?
Yeah.
You made a couple of comments about it where you were quite happy to see it. Well, actually, we've got David Boost, who probably the most famous when it comes to horrendous injuries.
Is he the one who made Peter Schmeichel sick?
Basically, yeah. We're going to be speaking to him too, 8 o'clock.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 8. The government's announced more than 2,000 people with learning disabilities and autism who are in secure hospital units are to have their care reviewed. It follows a report which said those in detention face horrific treatment and their human rights are being breached. The Prime Minister's written to Jeremy Corbyn asking him to give a clear picture of where his party stands on Brexit. Boris Johnson thinks the opposition's proposals will just mean more delay. Labour wants to renegotiate a new deal with Brussels. Shadow Brexit Secretary Keir Starmer says his party will then give the people a final say.
Within 6 months, you'll have a referendum. It's a straight fight between the best deal that can be secured and remain. And then we've got an outcome. And I think most people would say, as long as you've got a way out of this, then you're talking to me about things that matter to me.
Women could be able to detect their risk of cervical cancer without the need to go to the doctor for a smear test. Researchers have developed 2 checks that can be used at home. 2 men have been shot in West Yorkshire. The attack in Liversedge near Dewsbury yesterday evening left the pair seriously injured. 94% of people who use food banks simply can't afford the basic essentials. Research released by the Trussell Trust says almost everyone in the UK who uses them has only £50 a week to live on after rent. Daphne Akins runs a food bank and gives us one example of someone she's helping.
This woman is living on about £28 a week, if that. In August, she had £28 for that month to live on by the time all of her payments were withdrawn and taken out of her account. So she's in a desperate state, and she's like many other people coming to the food bank.
Scientists have found all forms of running lower the risk of an early death. The health of more than 200,000 people was analysed by researchers from Australia, Thailand and Finland. They found those who put on their trainers for even a short run were more than a quarter less likely to die compared to non-runners. That's the latest. I'm Rosa McRae.
This is Love Sport.
It's hard to enjoy your daily yoga routine when your mind is on your next VAT return. But with QuickBooks, the new VAT Smart Scan technology checks for errors and reviews VAT codes for you. So your biggest struggle is touching your forehead with your ankle.
Search for QuickBooks. Perfect for making tax digital. QuickBooks. Backing you.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
Morning, Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys has touched on the headlines this morning. WADA to investigate all athletes who train with band coach Salazar Farah's old samples may be retested. Klopp dismisses Pep claims that Sadio Mane is a diver. West Brom beat manager Stoke City 2-0 to go top of the Championship. England collapsed against New Zealand in the T20. New Zealand now take a 2-1 lead in the 5-match series. The Gomez surgery was a success. It went extremely well, and Spurs are to appeal against the Sun's red card. I am here with Mr. Patrick Christys.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello, the one, the only. Do you know what? You seemed like you were maybe getting poorly at the start of the show. There's a lot of sneezing going on.
There was a huge amount of sneezing.
You're a bit stuffy.
I was, yes. I was a bit bunged.
A bit bunged up. You actually seem fine now.
Well, you have revitalised me, Rich. You're my Barocca.
This is it. I give energy. I'm giving it to you right now.
Oh, that's horrible.
Giving you energy?
No, you know what you did.
What did I do?
Okay, right, let's talk about Mo Farah.
We're talking a lot about Mo Farah today because, of course, for those who haven't heard, some of his samples are going to be retested, which, given the fact that he is innocent, he says he's innocent, then he will have no issues with this whatsoever.
No, well, he shouldn't do anyway. So this is Mo Farah, Sir Mo Farah, of course, Olympic champion, legend, the Mobot and all that. Anyway, he faces having his drug test samples reassessed as part of A new World Anti-Doping Agency investigation into athletes from the Nike Oregon project. It comes after Alberto Salazar, probably the most famous athletic coach of recent years anyway, was banned for 4 years for doping violations. Now, he was Farah's trainer for 7 years at the Nike Oregon project, and he trained him in the run-up to the London 2012 Olympic Games, during which they shared a flat, and during that period, banned substances were found in that flat, according to multiple reports. There is, however, no indication that Mo Farah has, in fact, taken anything, and he's never failed a drugs test. But now, WADA are basically saying, look, let's have a look at this. Let's have a gander at this. And there'll be a detailed inquiry into the athletes who worked under the guidance of Salazar. They do have the capacity to test historic samples. However, there could be various things since 2012, if athletics really is as murky as we kind of suspect it is, realistically, what samples they're going to get hold of now from 2012?
It's a fair point. Let's say that, okay, let's we like to hypothesize, we like to create scenarios. Let's create the scenario that this doesn't end well for any of these athletes. Does that just kill athletics to an extent? I mean, people already have their question marks, like the Tour de France. Like, people have got their question marks. Does it then just become a bit, every time someone wins something, you're then thinking, did you?
Well, isn't it like that already?
That's what I mean. So then it's, I don't know, you start to lose interest. If you just think that it's riddled.
I think it is riddled. Like, I think it is unequivocally riddled with cheats. And a lot of those cheats, I imagine, win quite often. And I don't know about Mo Farah, obviously, but there are massive suspicions here, and there are massive suspicions in the way that he's responded to it. After the Chicago Marathon, at which he finished 8th and posted, I think it was his worst ever marathon time, he comes out and accuses people of racism for daring.
It's a strange response.
Daring to question him over the fact that he lived with a renowned drugs cheat for a while. Well, I'm sorry, Mo, but yeah, I've got questions.
But this is where I think that Mo, in theory, will love this. The fact that he's going to be retested. Perfect. Go on, test me again, and I will prove to you once again that I'm absolutely fine. So in theory, he should be delighted about this.
Well, he should be. He should be. We're yet to see if any representatives of Mo Farah are available for comment, of course. I very much doubt that they are. We'll have to wait and see. But the knock-on effect that this could have to athletics could be absolutely monstrous. And I think the fact is that people are always going to want to watch someone run really fast and really far and swim really fast and swim really far and all this kind of stuff. We are always going to want to see the show in the same way that I like going to the circus. But it is, I think, going to become a bit of that. I think it's going to become a circus event where, essentially we all know that the guy there with bright yellow bulging eyes and muscles coming out of every orifice is probably on the gag.
There's a good chance. I see all the messages coming in. As always, you can get in touch. 0208 70 20 558 on YouTube as well. A few people asking, so we promised Rob, didn't we? So apologies. Rob is he's in a museum right now.
This is
a true story. This is Rob.
This is classic Rob.
Classic Rob, who booked a flight to Japan on the back of a bit of a drinking session with no plans to get to the final or accommodation or anything. Classic Rob, just off the cuff. Well, he was due to be on about 15 minutes ago. However, he's in a museum, so it's very dramatic, but he is going to try and get himself on the show at some point. I do know the ending of this story now, but I don't want to tell it because
do you?
Well, I do because we do because Mark knows, our producer.
Know. He doesn't tell me.
No. Well, we don't want to tell you because we want to wait until we speak to Rob. So look, worst case scenario, we'll let you know whether it was a happy ending or not. But we want it to come from Rob, ideally. Much prefer it to come from Rob than Mark, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, we've had a message in. Patrick, what's happening this morning? Loving the more casual look today.
Oh, thank you, mate.
Richard's cool casual look has rubbed off on you.
Hey, absolutely. Richard's rubbed off on me, and he's been rubbing off on me for a period of time now. Yes, I just decided I woke up and I was feeling a little bit rough, so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to catch it up.
Yeah, you do. No, looking good. Also, Rob is still in Japan. He's still in Japan. He's in a museum in Japan.
Being funny, but what the heck is going on with this guy?
What's going on with Rob?
Rob, I mean,
should we really be introducing him to this radio station?
I think, well, definitely. It's part of the course right here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Patrick, you've got a show in 20 minutes. Sorry, I'm in Japan in a museum. Oh, okay.
Of course you are.
Yeah, sorry to bother you.
How could I have even doubted that? Well, look, we're hoping to speak to Rob at some point, so do stay tuned for that. Juventus midfielder Aaron Ramsey returns to the Welsh squad for the last two Euro 2020 qualifiers. Bale also included. Good news for Aaron Ramsey?
Look, absolutely. Apparently, he set the world alight over there. He's learnt the language very, very quickly, and he's really ingratiated himself into his team. And apparently, he's just a really popular guy all round. And fair play to him as well. You know, I think a lot of Arsenal fans were quite sad to see him go.
I think they are now even more so. They were, in fact, they were at the time, of course.
Should this be a little lesson for Arsenal fans? Just out of interest, and Arsenal fans out there, get in touch. 0208 70 25 58. I know we have a lot of Arsenal fans who listen regularly. Should this be a little bit of a wake-up call for you, that you kind of quite often dig out your own players quite publicly, Aaron Ramsey being one of them, and then actually it turns out he's really good at football?
I mean, let us know your thoughts. I think they'll have a few thoughts on that. Do you know, with the Aaron Ramsey one, I just think Arsenal didn't deal with it particularly well. The fact they let him run his contract out is just dreadful business, dreadful management. You know, it's a player worth, what's his market value? I know he's a little bit older now, but he has got a market value. To allow him to run it out and to leave for free, again, I said it at the time, for me it's just ludicrous. And the fact that he has gone to Juventus is doing as well as he is and what have you, then it is. But then I guess Arsenal fans will have their thoughts on that. And by all means, let us know. 0208 70 20 558. Want to move across North London, talk a bit of Spurs. Son is going to appeal the red card that he got. Of course, Gomez, it sounds like the surgery has gone very well, which is good news. It's interesting with this and we're going to be speaking to David Boose, former Coventry City defender, who of course had that brutal injury against Manchester United. Those that remember the scenes, I mean, visually it was horrendous. I believe David Boose retired on the back of that. He ended up having 23 surgeries on his leg. It was horrendous. But sometimes it's funny with these breaks where sometimes the worst injuries aren't necessarily the ones you see. So, for instance, with knee injuries, the cruciate injuries being a good example, it can look really innocuous at times, and then you suddenly find out they're out for a year. Sometimes with a bone break, and I've had a good example where I split my upper arm in two, and I ended up having to have 4 screws.
How did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I was being a bit silly, really.
What did you do?
It was a lovely sunny day. The ground was quite hard. I was training at Watford. Someone's put one in the top corner. I was showing off a bit because I was really springy. So I dived up and I was smiling as I caught it. And as I landed, my bone split.
Oh,
horrible. But do you know what? My point was going to be that I split the humerus bone, it's called. Not so humorous.
Not that humorous.
There you go. So I split the humerus bone all the way down the middle, quite badly. So I needed the 4 screws to pin it all back together. Now, it was obviously a bad injury, but actually for all the injuries I had, it was one of the least worrying because ultimately it's a bone break. It will heal. I just hope with Gomez, if it's a clean break, which it looked like it was, then if it's one where, okay, it might need some pins and what have you, but once it's back together, then in theory it should heal, like with Aaron Ramsey, who came back and made a full recovery, and a couple of other good examples. Hopefully he'll get a full recovery. So as bad as it looks, it might end up being one where he comes back to the exact level that he's at or has been at prior to this.
Well, look, hopefully, and those are the noises coming out of Everton at the minute, so we wish him all the best on that. Son, for his part, by the way, is being offered counselling.
Yeah, I heard this.
He was absolutely distraught. Dele Alli came out after the game and said that Son was crying in the dressing room. And I think it's one of those, isn't it, where you feel sorry for both people involved.
Yeah.
Really? Which is, clearly the player with the injury has come off much worse, don't get me wrong. But Son, it's terrible for him as well to have known that, to have that as a footballer. It must be like, it's like the other horses at the Grand National, isn't it?
Yeah.
When they're running past on one falls and you can see them going, oh no, mate, sorry about that. Because they know, don't they? One leg break and you get turned into glue.
There you go. I mean, slightly. I don't know if it quite relates.
Does that not still happen?
I mean,
no?
Who knows? I don't know if it quite relates. Do you know the one with Son, though, that I think where he looked like he felt guilty? And this is the look for me where he was distraught, absolutely distraught. But I think it was the fact that, look, the tackle he made, did he expect it then to go and lead to what it led to? Absolutely not. But at the same time, he did mean to foul him. And that's the bit where it must be quite difficult for Son, where it's a booking. It happens hundreds of times in a game, but he's gone down knowing he isn't going to get the ball, but he has meant to foul him, which is where that must be difficult for him to live with, where it's like, okay, ordinarily he just trips over, falls over, and they get up and carry on. In this case, actually, you meaning to foul him has led to that, and that'll be the difficult bit for him mentally.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Like, there was a time when I wasn't getting on too well with the missus, and so I decided I'll just message a couple of other girls just to make her jealous. That's all I wanted to do was just to make her jealous, and then they ended up sleeping with me, and it just really got out of hand.
So it's like, although your action,
I didn't mean it. Yeah. But it's happened, and now you're crying.
So it's like the action doesn't equal the consequences, yet it's so unfair. You'll get in trouble because of the consequences.
Loads of trouble, mate.
It's exactly the same.
It's 100% the same
identical.
thing. Yeah, it's weird. I feel
Man.
like I can really relate.
Well, look, I'm here for you if you need any counselling.
I'm all right.
I bet you are.
That's not my life.
14 minutes past 8.
This is Love Sport.
It's cancer, they said. My first thought, let's just say it wasn't money, but time off work for treatment and trips to the hospital, paying the mortgage, and. The cost of living doesn't go away just because you're living with cancer, and Macmillan can help with that too. My advice? Take their advice, soon as. I did.
Macmillan, right there with you. Search Macmillan Money Worries.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident, and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it, you just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F, face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A, arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S, speech. Is their speech slurred? T, time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
Whoa! Look how much saturated fat is in these chocolate biscuits. It's surprising how much is in our food and drinks. For us kids, eating too much saturated fat can lead to harmful fat building up inside, which we can't see, increasing the risk of heart disease or stroke when we get older. So be food smart. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app and start making healthier choices today.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys, here with you until 10 a.m. Patrick Christys, who is coughing and spluttering a bit today.
I've got a bit of a cold.
But you're full of energy.
It's the tube, mate. It's the flu wagon into work. It's a shocker, isn't it? You get on there, and there's always some geezer who's sat opposite you, doesn't bother to cover his hand, looks you dead in the eye while he coughs at you in the face. It's terrible, isn't it? I reckon at the end of the day, I should just go down the tube with just one of Boris Johnson's water cannons. You know what I mean? Done.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
We've had a WhatsApp in. Just want to read this out. Dave Seeger talking obviously about Aaron Ramsey that we were talking about earlier. This is his opinion. Should not have let him go for free, of course, but can't commit $200 per week to a player that misses 20-25 matches per season every season
fair.
and takes 4 or 5 games to get back to the best after each injury. Ramsey has not played a qualifier for Wales and I think started 2 or 3 games for Juve in 4 months. Makes a fair point.
Yeah, it's fair enough.
Makes a fair point indeed. Well, look, we're going to be talking to Wayne Faraday now, former West Brom winger. Of course, West Brom went top of the Championship last night. 2-0 win over Stoke City, who are in all sorts of trouble down the bottom of the Championship. Morning, Wayne.
Good morning, guys.
Morning. They looked good last night, didn't they, West Brom? They pretty comfortable from start to finish, I thought.
They did. I think they look overall. They looked very comfortable last night. Okay, they won with 2 goals. Could have been more, but overall, I think they look very strong. Yeah, last night.
Indeed. Well, let's hear quickly from Slaven Bilic on the performance last night.
To be fair, I wasn't happy with our performance, and at the half-time, I told the guys that there's a difference in the class. It's because of the confidence, front foot, and all that. There's a difference in it. They have some brilliant players on the paper, but they are in crisis.
And he's spot on, really. I mean, it's quite worrying for the rest of the division where he's saying that they've got other levels to go to. But you look at some of the players they've got in the team, they do seem to be clicking. They've got a quality goalkeeper. Obviously, Romain Sawyers has slotted in quite nice. You've got Matt Phillips, who is very good. So many players. I mean, out of that squad, you've got to say, 8 or 9 of them are Premier League players. Is that fair?
Yeah, without doubt. Without doubt. You mentioned a few there. One that stood out for me last night and has stood out most of the season is Romain Sawyers. Pereira, we know what he gives you, but Romain Sawyers just puts it all together. He just sits in there, and some of the balls he was playing last night were fantastic, were Premier League quality. So I think adding him has been a big plus for West Brom.
It was an interesting one, that, because there was obviously, and being a London station, we had a good eye on him here at Brentford, and it felt like he obviously a big part of the Brentford squad over the last few years, and that always felt like the right fit, given that he's a West Brom lad as well, isn't he? He did his apprenticeship, I believe, at West Brom, and it does seem like he's gone back in there, fitted in well, and having that position, I suppose that position, sitting midfielder, linking the play together like he did last night, and then when you've got the attacking threat that West Brom have got, it does just feel like the dynamic is there to continue this. What's the biggest threat for West Brom, though? Because I look at it, and you look at the division where there's a lot of teams on a similar number of points. West Brom do seem to be the outstanding candidates at the moment, although there's not a great deal in it. What's the biggest threat to West Brom? Would it be an injury or two to key players?
I think it could be, yes. Complacency, I think, that could be a factor, but I don't think Slaven Bilic will ever allow that. So I think the main threat for them is, like you say, picking up injuries to the big players, the Sawyers, the Pereira, the Matt Phillips. The worrying thing is as well, Charlie Austin has not actually started playing yet. Yeah. He's got one goal, has he? Maybe two. But there's a lot more to come from him. So for the rest of the division, that's the worrying thing right now. That they are where they are, but there's still more to come from them.
Yeah, and touching on the rest of the division, because it's so competitive year in, year out. Even the fact that we're talking about Stoke, who are down the bottom, and we look at the amount of money they've spent, the players they've got there, for as badly as you thought they might do, to be on the number of points they're on. But it just shows you this championship this season, maybe even more so than the last few seasons, you get the impression there's going to be a good, 10, 11 teams, maybe even more, that fancy themselves for even the top two places.
Yeah, I think so. We all know how tough this league is to get out of, to stay in and to get out of. But this year, as you said, more than any other year, there's a lot of big clubs in this division now, and it's going to be, like you say, anybody on the day, anybody beats anybody, and it has been like that for a while. But like you say, more this season, it's tougher than ever. Seems to be.
Yeah, indeed. Just a quick word on QPR, of course, another one of your former clubs. They lost again on Saturday, so after such an incredible start, there's been a couple of defeats recently, but they're still ninth and only 8 points off the top. They're still punching above their weight, given their budget, I'd say.
Yes, definitely, mate. I'm there every home game because I'm quite happily and bless them for this. I work for the club match day, so I'm there every game, and I've always said from the last few seasons, it's going to be another tough one. Obviously, with Mark coming in, and the majority of the squad, he's brought a lot of players in and out, but there's still a nucleus of what there has been the last few seasons. I still thought it was going to be a tough season. I didn't expect one like last season, where it was a real scrap to stay in there. But I was thinking mid-table, just below, I would probably be quite happy with that. But with the start they've had, it's been amazing, the start they've had, but realism is it lately. Last couple of games, as we said, I was at the Brentford game, they got beat quite well and truly beaten by Brentford, and now Leeds away. It's a big game this Saturday, I think, for them now. I'll be there, but I think it's a must-win to stay up and around the top half of the table.
Yeah, well, quick word on Mark Warburton. In fact, he's a manager of mine at Brentford, and I've known him since his Watford days. Incredible what he's done. I mean, his whole story, being in the city until he was 45 years old and pretty much only getting into football properly at that age, to now find himself where he is. And, I certainly feel like he was harshly treated to an extent, in that he had such success with Brentford, such success with Glasgow Rangers. Didn't go so well at Notts Forest, although wasn't there particularly long. But again, at QPR, he seems to be getting his brand of football across. And I think you make a good point. The fact that the Championship, I suppose you look at it now where it is so tight and where everyone's got these aspirations. Charlton and QPR initially might be, right, if we can get mid-table or even lower half but be safe, that's okay. Whereas all of a sudden now you're looking at it and there's so many teams that are much of a muchness, you do feel that if QPR can repeat some of the performances that we saw earlier in the season, they actually might have a shot.
Yeah, definitely. Patrick, I think they can, like you say, if they can get back on their winning ways this weekend. I don't see why they can't. He has changed. I think personally, all around the place, every player is a lot fitter than what they have been the last few seasons, and he's gotten playing type of football QPR have always been renowned for. All the years I was there, through the late 70s and 80s, and the players we had, we was always renowned for the type of football we played. And he's trying to get that back. He likes to play from the back. The players are more confident now. You know, last season, the season before, didn't really want the ball. Oof, don't give it me, and get rid of it as soon as possible. But now they want it. They want the ball. They have a couple of touches on it, and he likes to play the brand of football, which he is. And I know a lot of the QPR fans are pleased about.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one. You mentioned the game this weekend, of course, Middlesbrough at home, and then it's the international break as well. So it's always nice to sign off with a victory before an international break. But ordinarily, you're going into this game, start of the season, someone's saying QPR, Middlesbrough after the success they've had over the last few years, with no disrespect to QPR, but you're looking at this thinking actually a point's probably not the worst result. However, Middlesbrough really struggling this season. You would have to have QPR as favourites. Do you expect them to get a victory against Middlesbrough?
I do. Mate, I do, and I think you're spot on with what you said. You know, you look at it, and Middlesbrough, you would have thought would have been up and around the top right now, but they've had a nightmare season so far. So I would like to think the way we have started the season, apart from the last few games, we'd be favourites to win Saturday, and I would like to think we're going to do that.
Yeah, and then, of course, coming back from the international break, it'll be Fulham away, which is what I'm sure you're looking forward to.
Yes, definitely. I don't know if I'll be getting to that game, but I'll be watching the score lines coming in because obviously a little local derby there. So yeah, but firstly, let's get Middlesbrough out the way. Like you say, the international break. It's always great to get a win before the break, yeah, if we can do that on Saturday, I will be happy, and onwards to Fulham.
Fantastic. Wayne, really appreciate you joining us.
No worries. Thanks, guys.
Great stuff. Wayne Faraday there, former West Brom and QPR winger, giving his thoughts on West Brom's good victory, big victory last night away at Stoke. And as Slaven Bilic said, there's still another level for them to go to, which is concerning for the rest of the Championship. They won at a canter last night. By the way, the Stoke Stadium as well, towards the end, so it was empty, which was incredible, really. It's a bit sad when you see this Stoke team, how they're performing, where they were not so long ago, and what's happened to that club over the last 2 or 3 years. The concern now is that they will be one of the favourites to get relegated, despite the number of players they've got, despite the budget they've got.
Yeah.
Like, if Stoke go down again, it's going to be similar to what Sunderland did. You wouldn't have expected Sunderland to get relegated down to League One, but we've seen bigger teams that it's happened to.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it, really? I mean, it's a tricky one. I don't know whether or not football fans have to word with themselves here. I know that you pay your money and all that, and you go, but you know what you're watching, all right? You can decide if you want to go and buy a Manchester City shirt and go and watch them play, or Liverpool, if you really want. Your team has given you all of those moments where the ball's gone in the back of the net and you've jumped off your seat and you've poured your coffee over the person in front and you've absolutely lost the plot. All of those great moments, all those fantastic moments. And Stoke have had some wonderful moments in the top flight of English football. They are going through an incredibly difficult time now. And to see an empty stadium, I think is disrespectful.
Yeah. No, I suppose I'd have to agree, but then at what point do you just lose hope?
I get that. I do get that. But what's the point, though, of still calling yourself a Stoke fan? You might as well go, actually, I'm not a Stoke fan anymore.
It's kind of like through thick and thin and that loyalty towards your club. No, I get all that. I guess it's kind of, I suppose if you keep turning up, you keep getting disappointed. I guess you have it on a regular basis when you return home, and it's that constant disappointment. At what point do you just stop going home?
Or caring.
Yeah.
Stop caring,
Yeah, of
That's
course.
it. Yeah, absolutely. Just a little aside, very little aside, because it's completely off topic, and I won't dwell on this very long. I've just had quite an interesting message come through from a friend of mine who's, I'm in an economics WhatsApp group, because that's how we party. Apparently, Deutsche Bank might be about to file for bankruptcy.
Wow.
Which is massive.
That is massive.
Massive.
Well, this could happen today.
It potentially in the next couple of days. If it does happen, Europe's knackered.
Yeah. That evil laugh will leave. He's there stroking his cat.
Woo! We were right. Sorry.
Right, so Rob Lewis, who I feel like we've dedicated a lot of this show to our crazy fan over in Japan.
Is he on?
Well, no, but we have an update apparently as to. So last we heard he was due to be on the show about 45 minutes ago, but couldn't because he was in a museum in Japan.
Yes.
Of course he was. Why wouldn't he be when he's meant to
It's
be
all about the culture, mate.
on the show? Well, producer Mark has an update as to where Rob Lewis is.
Okay.
Indeed. Well, apparently Japanese museum needs absolute silence, so I've been having to text him. I texted him and said, how about we do 9:15? Because we've got a nice little slot at 9:15 ready, primed for him to come on. We'll finally get a resolution to the story. And he said, potentially, mate, but I need phone battery as well. Sorry for being awkward. We'll update shortly. So the legend grows with Rob Lewis.
So he's got no battery. I mean, come on. Like, he hasn't charged his phone. Who is this guy?
Well, he's the type of guy that, after 5 pints, buys a one-way ticket to Japan on a whim.
An absolute liability. Loose cannon is the word I'd use.
But you know what I don't understand is, right, is that he's got... Well, he did anyway. He had a job.
Yeah. Well,
is that still a thing? Or we don't know, do we?
You'd
don't
think.
know.
Who knows? Who knows with Rob? Guys like Rob don't need a job.
Guys like Rob are just fine, aren't they?
Guys like Rob, you want a Rob in your group.
Yeah, definitely.
When Rob's in your group, you don't know where the night's going to lead.
Yeah, exactly. You ask him to go out for, just pick up some groceries, and he comes back with like a full face of glitter, 15 shots of tequila, and someone called Desmond.
Yeah, he's that guy in your group when you go out on a night out that stumbles off home drunk first, but you know he's going to be okay. You don't even need to text him. You're like, he's going to get home all right, bum leg or not. So
yeah, exactly.
Well, hopefully we'll speak to him if he's got phone battery in 15 minutes or so. It could just cut off halfway through the call.
I've got a feeling no one has spent as long in a Japanese museum as our friend Rob.
No.
So we'll have to wait and see about him.
We will. Well, look, we're going to be speaking to David Boost. Of course, we've been talking a lot about injuries and the horrendous injury to Gomez, of course, in the game the other day. So we're going to be speaking to David Boost, former Coventry City defender. Of course, he had that brutal injury against Manchester United back in 1996. He's had 23 surgeries on his leg since. I'll be interested to get his take. 29 minutes to 9.
Love sport. Digital radio offers great sound quality and more stations than ever before. And we want to make sure that you get Love Sport on your digital radio. Just press the auto tune or auto scan button and Love Sport will appear on your menu. Love Sport on digital radio. Fed up with extortionate bills? Stop wasting your money. A Spokesman Said is the leading price comparison site that can help you make big savings. Visit aspokesmansaid.com for the best deals on your car, home and travel insurance.
Spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
It's cancer, they said. My first thought, let's just say it wasn't money, but time off work for treatment and trips to the hospital, paying the rent, and. The cost of living doesn't go away just because you're living with cancer, and Macmillan can help with that too. My advice? Take their advice. Soon as. I did.
Macmillan, right there with you. Search Macmillan Money Worries. There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics.
All better. Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident, and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
Love sport.
That's what breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys, here with you until 10 a.m. Got a very special guest on the line now. Of course, I'm sure most of us saw the injury the other day to Gomez, horrific injury. And of course, Son has now been offered counselling on the back of this. Well, many will remember back in '96, David Booth, former Coventry City defender, suffered a very similar injury in many ways. Delighted to say David is on the line now. Morning, David.
Morning.
Morning. I'm obviously, I remember that game. Being a Man United fan as a kid, I remember that game well, and of course it was huge news at the time. I'm aware since then you've had 23 surgeries on your leg. Before we talk about Gomez, keen to know how you are now. Like, how is the leg? You had so many surgeries. I believe you suffered from MRSA as well as a result.
Yeah, that was the main reason why. It was the reason I stopped playing again. I mean, it's 23 years ago now, so. The actual break I suffered at Old Trafford, mended and knitted and as strong as ever. But it's the soft tissue injuries to my muscles and my tendons in my right leg. That because of the MRSA, they had to be cut away. So it essentially left me with a drop foot. So that was the thing that stopped me playing, rather than the actual break.
Well, this is we were talking earlier because I mean. I was giving an example. So when I played, I split my upper arm, and for all the injuries I had, I mean that was probably it looked the worst, I guess. But the actual bone, as you touched on there, the bone does heal. But it was actually, I guess, it's all the stuff surrounding it. For me, then it was you mentioned you have to cut through tissue and other bits and pieces. With Gomez, with what's happened, and it looked horrific. But is there a good chance that, providing it knits together as it should, that he should be able to get himself back to full fitness?
Yeah, so the important thing is, I mean, I'm no medical expert, by the way, but it's just from my own experiences with dislocations. And for me, the key thing is whether the bones come out the skin or not. Because if they don't come out the skin, they're protected within the skin. So that means no infections and no other damage. With the dislocation, as soon as they can get it back into correct position and not cut off any blood supplies and anything like that. And obviously with the medical, I think I heard of the fact that within 12 seconds of the injury, he was on the doctors and the medics were on there treating him. So as long as as horrific as it looked, as long as they can basically just flip it back into its correct position, and then it's about what extent the fracture is then. So is it at the right at the bottom of the, I think it's called the malleoli or something like that, right at the bottom of the bone. What sort of fracture is it? Is it a spinal fracture? Because I had a spinal fracture, so has further complications. If it's just a clean break, then that'll heal, the same as any other one would do, between 6 and 12 weeks. So as horrific as it's looking, if he's got no other complications, then I wouldn't be surprised to see him back, on the pitch or back training within sort of 3, 4, 5 months.
Wow, well, obviously we wish him all the best. But in your case, can you just tell us what it kind of felt like, really? Not in terms of the pain, but, mentally, I suppose. It must have been a very difficult situation for you.
It is, and it comes in stages. So, obviously, at the time when I was in Manchester Hospital for 6 weeks, I had 12 operations in the first 10 days. People are around you, everyone's doing everything for you. You're sort of a centre of attention a little bit. I had a lot of media coverage at the time as well. And then all of a sudden, 3 months later, when you've gone back, you've seen the lads, they're getting on with their day-to-day stuff. You're not part of that environment anymore. You're not part of the conversations. You're not playing. You're not training. You're one step away from it. And most footballers will tell you it's that dressing room, sort of the mentality, the jokes that go on in there, the camaraderie. That's what you miss, and that's what you're taken away from. I was lucky in the fact that I was late coming into football, and I was 24, and I'd been out in what I call the real world, working. Absolutely loved the privilege and honour of being able to be paid to play football, and I knew it was only ever going to be for a short period anyway. Obviously, I didn't expect it to be finished by injury, but my expectations were, to play at the highest level and then go back into the working world afterwards. That was realistic in what was going to happen, and I was sort of probably mentally more prepared for that than current players. And I think that's the big thing. The immediate fears that probably Andre would be having would be, am I gonna play again? This is my career. What happens? And all these thoughts going in mind. And depending on what sort of person you are, how resilient you are, I think most footballers are very resilient because to get to where they have that small percentage, they make it professionally. Means they have to have a positive mindset and a determination.
When it did happen at the time, and like you say, the first, God, it sounds horrendous, that first 10 days or first 12 days, the amount of operations you needed. At the time, there was some, I remember Peter Schmeichel, wasn't it, who it really seemed to affect at the time, and a few of the United players. Did you also hear from some of the United players as well as the commentary players?
Yeah, I mean, as I say, because of the sort of the profile of where it was, I mean, had I done it down the road in a reserves match at Bury, which I could easily have done, then, you wouldn't be talking about it. Is the fact that it was done at Old Trafford, at the time, the biggest stadium in the country, and, the TV were all over it. So it gave it that sort of, that high profile, outlook on it. And then, obviously, there's, people like Sir Alex, they came round, Rod Atkinson brought all of our lads down. And as I say, that first sort of 3 months, you're sort of centre of attention, and you get sort of mocked up in the sort of media doing interviews and things like that. And I wasn't used to doing stuff like that, just a regular centre half, and no one ever talked to me. And all of a sudden they wanted to talk about my broken leg rather than my football career. But you just roll with it, and it sort of it breaks up the day-to-day stuff after the initial treatment. And as I say, it's after that period when it all goes quiet, when you're sort of on your own at home, you can't do anything because of the injury. That's where the sort of mental side of it comes into it, and depends on what support you have around you, and friends, family, and things like that will determine which way you go and what your own mindset is as well.
Do you think that if your injury had happened today, that you would have ended up being able to kind of come back from that in a bigger way because of, well, frankly, the way I suppose medicine's improved, and if so, does that annoy you a little bit?
It certainly doesn't annoy me. The situation around my MRSAs in hospitals, the nurses carry it around with them.
Yeah.
You would like to think it would have been picked up a little bit earlier, because obviously I went from one hospital to another, and it was like within the first, I think something like the 15 hours of the injury, 24 hours of the injury was when the muscle had sort of, because of the it's called a hematoma. It's basically when you get a dead leg, the impact is so severe, it basically bursts. Right. And that's how the MRSA got into it. And then MRSA is something that stops things healing. It kills the soft tissue and things like that. So I'd like to think hospitals are a lot more. I'm not saying they were dirty back then, but MRSA wasn't as known. It was always known in older people then. Yeah. I think there's more research gone and more drugs that can combat that sort of thing. So the answer to your question, they probably could have done more, but there was quite a few soft tissue injuries, not just the tendons, but the muscle as well, and blood supplies. I had to have sort of all my arteries had to be sort of rejigged around to get a good blood supply, a blood supply to it. So I don't think that would have changed it, but it's hindsight, isn't it? We don't know really.
Yeah, of course. And I believe you now work Sky Blues in the community charity. Just out of interest, have you made as good as a full recovery now? Is it? Obviously, you mentioned the 23 surgeries, and it's been so long. Has it had any effects since then?
No, just the drop foot. Just the way I walk. I mean, I managed to play over 35 football about 8 years after the injury. After playing with friends and charity matches, and then played that for 15 years. I retired a couple of years ago. And I'm now playing open age football with Leamington Vets in the Warwickshire League. So, but that's only like here and now because of friends dragged me into it. But I love football. I want to play no matter what level it is, or whether it's five-a-side, whether it's a competitive game or not. That's built within me. That's why I love football.
Yeah, brilliant. And if you had a message for Andre Gomez, obviously with what he's going through now, with what you went through, what you've learned, what would it be?
It would be, if he's reading anything that's got my name on it, don't relate to me at all. There's different complications that went on with mine. Yeah. If everything stayed and it was all nice and clean, and the doctors have got to it fine, then he'll make a full recovery. The only thing I will say to him was to set his own goals, achievable goals, because if people are telling around him, you'll be back playing, in 3-4 months' time, and that doesn't happen, that's going to have a big psychological effect on him. He's got to set himself small achievable goals, like, when will I be walking again? When will I be jogging again? When will I be running again? When will I join in training again? It's those achievable goals that will help him, in the long run with this injury.
Fantastic. Well said. David, really appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, cheers, David.
No problem.
Great stuff. David
Cheers,
Booth there, former Coventry City defender. Really interesting. I mean...
I don't remember watching that live.
Yeah.
I've just checked that out now while it was on air. The video of it. Gosh.
Yeah, horrendous.
Poor bloke.
I remember at the time, and I you know me, we've had this conversation. I don't ever want to see things like that. Like it's.
Well, I tried to show it.
You just tried to show me just then, and I will not look. No, because it's. Do you know what? I know it's so bad, and because I've had some myself. I guess it's partly that as well. Like I can imagine if you're watching something like that and you've had a similar injury yourself, it's only going to bring back memories of what that felt like. And it's for a footballer, for all the bad things that can happen, getting a major injury is one of the worst. Like I remember lying there on the pitch. In fact, funnily enough, Coventry City, we were just talking about Coventry City, I got all my injuries against Coventry City. So
Did you?
I broke my cheek against Coventry City. I ruptured my knee against Coventry City. I ruptured my bicep against Coventry City. I don't know what it is about Coventry.
Is that why in the back of your car you've got a sign that says, I hate Coventry?
What's the saying? There is an expression about
send you to Coventry.
Do not do that because I don't think I'd survive.
No.
But yeah, so I remember lying on the floor. I still can picture that feeling when one of my defenders tried to jump over me and kneed me in the face and left me with a broken cheek, broken eye. And I remember lying there on the floor. Had Liverpool in the Cup the next week, semi-final of the Cup, which I'd played brilliantly up to that point. And it was that feeling like, wow, I'm going to miss all that. And my face is mangled and I'm in utter pain right now. And I could see the look of everyone around me that were like, oh my God.
Why were they like that? Because it's a cheek. Was it
caved in, yeah.
Did it?
It was horrendous, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You got any pictures?
No.
Oh.
I wouldn't show. What's wrong with you?
What? I'm just saying.
What is wrong with you?
What?
Why do you want to see pictures of all this kind of stuff?
Just saying.
Right, look, we're going to a break. 8:45.
Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men. Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
Hello, my name's Paula. I'm from the Shropshire area and I'm a business development manager. I use a spokesman said for my car insurance where I've saved over £500 and also on travel insurance as well. So in total, me and my family have saved about £600. I would definitely use it again and I would definitely recommend it.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Right, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
Exercise. It doesn't have to mean Lycra or a fancy gym membership. All you need is 10 minutes and you. Because a regular 10-minute brisk walk is a great way to get more active. Whether that's walking to the shops or getting off the bus to stop early. Picking up the pace and getting your heart pumping can make a real difference to your health. So, to see how much brisk walking you're doing and how you can fit more into your day, download the free Active 10 app. Because there's only one you.
This is Love Sport.
Lost for breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Producer Mark is with us as well. I believe there's a funny VAR story.
Yeah, I love this. This is Monaco's Ruben Aguilar. He was red carded because of a VAR decision in Ligue 1 in a clash against Saint Etienne. And he was so infuriated by the decision because of VAR that he ended up kicking the VAR monitor in anger and breaking it.
This is the kind of thing I can imagine Patrick Christys doing, being that upset with a VAR decision that you go and take out your anger on the VAR monitor. Yeah. It is quite funny, actually. If you haven't seen the pictures, it's worth checking out. He goes and fly kicks this monitor.
It's just me driving to Stockley Park.
Yeah.
Like 100 miles an hour. Just storms out the stadium, shirt off, granite jacket, tell everyone to F off on the way out, get in the car, Stockley Park, petrol through the letterbox, back at the stadium in time for half time.
Okay, a little bit too much detail there, Patrick. It's amazing.
If that happens now,
Yeah,
I'm going to get in so much trouble.
You can imagine halfway through our show and the police come in and just walk you out. That can make for an interesting show. Do you know what they'd say? You should count to 10, shouldn't they, to allow your anger to subside? I've got a feeling with you, 10's not quite enough. Because I could imagine you driving to Stockley Park. You could be in the car for hours, still with the same level of anger.
I've done some bad things. So there was once when I was on holiday in Croatia. It's just recently, actually, and as it turned out, quite a young Croatian boy, probably about 15. He was massive though too. He looked like a war criminal. And we were on a bus, and I was pretty sure that he'd said something derogatory about the English. Now, you don't do that. You don't do that, okay? So what happened was later on, I realised that he was taking part in a national Croatian dance in the town square of the island that we're staying on.
Nice.
So I left my dinner with my girlfriend to walk about half a mile down the road so I could stand in front of him and laugh at him for half an hour.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not.
What's wrong with you?
A lot, I think.
Yeah. And you don't know for definite that he was being horrible to us. You just suspected that he might be.
A strong suspicion.
Right, so you suspected that he might be. You've left your dinner in order to walk, 15 minutes? To go and stand there for half an hour laughing at a poor child.
Pointing as well.
Pointing as well?
Pointing as well,
A 15-year-old Croatian child?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
it's when
lost
you say it out loud, isn't it, really?
I mean, no, not even then. Even when you think it, it's just as bad. Mark?
Patrick, was this like a romantic getaway? So during the dinner...
It's true, it was. Yeah, it was our anniversary.
So pardon me, dear, I have to go bully a 15-year-old Croatian
Didn't bully him, all right, didn't bully him. Okay, the lad could handle himself, but he needs to learn. He needs to learn.
She is a lucky lady.
Yeah.
Really. Right, let's talk a bit of Mo Farah.
Okay, all right.
Let's do that, shall we?
Talking of cheats, oh no, I didn't admit to that. No, also not allowed to say that. Sorry, everyone, all round. Mo Farah is. He's been.
He might not be Patrick.
Mo Farah is definitely not a cheat.
There we go.
He's
We've
never
clarified
failed
that.
a drugs test, and is probably never going to. However, WADA are going to investigate all of Salazar's Nike athletes, which of course does include Mo Farah. Now, it's important to say that there's no indication whatsoever as yet that Mo Farah's done anything wrong. However, they are going to be going through some of his urine samples, blood samples, etc., from around the time of the Olympics in 2012, which, of course, he won everything.
He did. Well, look, you would think Mo Farah, in theory, will be really happy about this, because this is an opportunity. If he comes back, here's one for you then, he comes back and he's absolutely clean, then at that point we say...
Yeah. But then this is what's going to annoy me. You're going to get your Steve Cram at the BBC, your Paula Radcliffe, and Mo Farah going, see, he told you, you all jumped on the bandwagon, you're all racist, you're all this, that. No, we had a very legitimate suspicion because the bloke that trained you for 7 years and you lived with for a while was a rampant drugs cheat, Mo. So that's why we're having a look, innit?
Indeed. By the way, the rugby, I know we keep touching on this.
Oh, yeah?
We haven't got him yet. Because he's still, I believe, in this museum where you have to be absolutely silent. We do believe he's still got battery on his phone.
Right.
So for those that are just joining us, basically we will be speaking to Rob. We've been following this story the whole time. Booked a ticket to Japan. Robbo. Booked a ticket to Japan on the back of England beating New Zealand.
Yeah.
Didn't have a match ticket, didn't have accommodation, had a busted knee, but still managed to make his way to Japan. We don't know how this ends up. We don't know whether he got to the stadium or not.
And just to clarify, he's currently claiming to be in a museum.
I mean, he's a liability. And we'll happily tell this to him when we speak to him, but he was meant to be on the show about an hour ago.
Yeah,
He's been trapped in some museum where you have to be silent. He's got no
At what
battery.
point does it turn out that we've been deeply insensitive about this and he has to be silent because there's an ongoing incident at the museum that he's trapped in?
I mean, this could happen, and then I'll feel pretty guilty. Mark?
I think he's had more build-up at this point than the actual Rugby World Cup did.
It's true. It's a very good point.
I think it's true, but we're going to try and get him on at 9:15, all being well. So no doubt you want to stay tuned for that. We do know the answer to this story, by the way, or Mark certainly does. So worst case scenario, at the end of the show, we will tell you the answer as to what happened exactly.
All right, okay, fair play. So the war of words is hotting up between Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp. Pep's done the whole mind games thing about saying that Sadio Mane is a cheat, that he dives. And Pep Guardiola has said that he's not a diver and said, look, I'm not in a Manchester City mood. I don't fancy talking about them. Essentially, basically, Pep should look at his own team. Of course, Liverpool in action tonight against Genk at Anfield.
Would you like to hear from Jurgen Klopp on this subject? Let's do it.
I'm not really in the Man City mood in the moment, to be honest, and don't think about it. And people from other clubs, it's always like this. That's how it is. But Sadio's not a diver. So it was a situation in the Aston Villa game where he got a contact and went down, and maybe it was not a penalty, but there was contact. It's not like jumping over a leg and do like he hit you or whatever.
Can we just get that little bit there where he says Sadio is not a diver? Can we just get that clipped up? Because he sounds exactly like the Terminator.
Yeah, he does a bit.
Yeah.
He does a bit. That's the kind of like deleted scenes, isn't it? Where you see there Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That's how it is. Sadio's not a diver.
Not a diver. I love it. He is definitely the Terminator.
You've seen there Arnold Schwarzenegger there just...
So it was a situation in the Aston Villa game where he got a contact and went down. Not a diver.
There you go.
Right, that keeps happening. So good.
Sadio's not.
Why are you doing this?
He's not a diver. I think we clarified that he is definitely not a diver, okay?
Sadio's not
Why?
a diver.
Why is this happening?
So Jurgen Klopp, it turns out, is the Terminator. Who knew? Sorry, you were going to say, Patrick?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter anymore.
It doesn't matter what I was going to say.
Right, is it heating up between the two? Because I'm reading the quotes in the paper. We know that they're quite good friends, from what we understand. They've got a bit of a competitive rivalry. Pep called Klopp after the Champions League final.
I called him a... Oh, no, yeah, sorry, a different...
To congratulate him.
Yeah.
So there's obviously like a mutual respect there, and this is just some basic manga. Here's one for you. Pep's never won at Liverpool. Do you know that?
Really? Oh, but you also know that Pep has never lost 3 consecutive away games at a stadium in his life.
Okay. Well, something has to give.
Something's gotta give. Also, something that's got to give is the Chelsea game this evening.
Yes.
Ajax. Now, Chelsea have... Go on, your stat about Chelsea never losing to a Dutch opponent.
100% record against Dutch opponents.
But Ajax haven't lost in England for 39 years.
Something has to give.
Something's got to give.
So this, will be an interesting game. Of course, Chelsea won the reverse fixture. Ajax, brilliant last season. And actually, we obviously spoke earlier to our Dutch football expert. It sounds like, they're at it again this season. They're romping away in the Dutch league, and they'll win that comfortably. Of course, I think it's AK Alkmaar or whatever they're called. They're chasing them, but they're nowhere near them. They're going to win the Dutch league quite comfortably. However, it must be difficult. This is what I think a lot of the leagues are finding now, is that there's such little competition in a lot of these leagues when you've got the outstanding team, that when it comes to the European competition, I think this is why the English clubs are doing so well, in that the Premier League's great. It really is. The standard is fantastic.
Yeah, it's good.
So, when you've got your...
I reckon the Dutch league would be quite good fun, though, wouldn't it?
Well, it's Dutch league...
Super funky party time, you guys. I'm in the Netherlands. Just trying to party. Let's do this.
I get the impression you just wanted to do your...
Super funky party time, you guys.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Dutch, ladies and gentlemen.
The Dutch. There you go, lazy stereotypes. We've got that hour coming up, actually, our lazy stereotype hour. You do want to stay tuned for that. The Dutch league is a solid look. There's a lot of obviously top players that come from the Dutch league that come to the Premier League. But I just think when you've got a team that are as good as Ajax, it must be tough to play at the level you need to then enter the Champions League.
Who's your favourite Dutch player of all time, Rich?
Jaap Stam.
Really?
Yours?
Edgar David.
Okay, interesting.
I think Bergkamp maybe.
Oh, actually, you just named another really good one. But then I was a Man United fan, so it was either going to be Van Nistelrooy or Jaap Stam.
Van Nistelrooy. Gosh, the Dutch are lovely, aren't they?
There's some top Dutch players.
Really
over
good
the
at the football, you guys.
Patrick Kluivert.
Yeah,
very
exactly.
good as well.
Nice skills.
Okay, do you want to do one more before we go to the news?
Yes.
That'll do. 3 minutes to 9.
Sadio's not a diver.
This is Love Sport.
Stop paying too much for your energy bills. Brian saved money on his at a spokesmansaid.com. Can you?
I'm Brian from Swaddling Coat, South Derbyshire, and I saved about £400 on my energy bill with a Spokesman Said. The iSpokesman Said website was very easy to use, and the money I saved I put towards a holiday.
Compare home energy quotes from the UK's biggest suppliers in just a matter of minutes with a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
I love my brother. We do fun things like playing together. I like having hugs with Freddie. Freddie gives the best hugs. Freddie used to be very poorly, and the doctor said he might need a new liver. Then one day, a very nice person gave their liver to Freddie. It was amazing. We were so happy. Now he's around to give me more hugs than ever.
Tell your family you want to save lives. To find out more, visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
Last Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys, here with you until 10. Big hour coming up. Who knows? We might be speaking to Rob. We might not, but we'll see. We'll be hearing from Andrew Sproul.
I'm going to quiz him on this museum, by the way.
Go on.
Because this is Rob, the bloke who flew to Japan on a whim to go and watch England play in the Rugby World Cup final. Shattered knee. Absolute liability, let's be honest. He's currently in a museum. Was supposed to have spoken to us an hour ago. I'm going to quiz him on this museum.
We will do. We're going to be speaking. I think you might be right. We're speaking to Stuart Codling, F1 journalist, also Nikolai Lisberg, our Spanish football expert. Of course, some stories linking Real Madrid, Gareth Bale, Raheem Sterling. Yes. Who knows if there's truth? As always, get in touch. 0208 70 20 558 9 o'clock.
On digital radio, online, mobile, and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 9. Ministers are demanding care reviews for 2,000 people with autism or learning disabilities who are being held in secure hospital units. It was recently revealed one girl is locked up for 24 hours a day and allowed little contact with her father, Jeremy. But he's attacked the announcement by the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock.
Fake news, utter fake news. He's talked about 400 people having them before March next year. I would assume that is the 400 people whose reviews are currently well overdue.
Jeremy Corbyn is expected to tell voters later that he will get Brexit done within half a year if he becomes Prime Minister. But Boris Johnson says the Labour leader's plan means there will be more dither and delay in 2020. Conservative MP Michael Gove says the choice is clear.
People have doubted Boris in the past. They doubted that he'd be able to get the deal that he did. He managed in just 90 days to move from square one to completion. I think that during the period after the general election, we'll get that good deal with Europe. Ultimately, the only way you can get Brexit done is by voting for the Conservatives.
A report assessing Russia's threat to Britain's democratic processes won't be published until after the general election. Peers want the document released before Parliament is dissolved tomorrow, saying the delay is unjustified. Boris Johnson's been accused of sitting on the report and refusing to make it public, although the government's dismissing that. The older sister of Islamic State's former leader has reportedly been captured alive in northwest Syria. Turkey says it's arrested 65-year-old Rasmia Awad and family members. Air pollution levels on bonfire night can be up to 4 times the daytime figures. Thousands of sensors across Newcastle and Gateshead showed measurements tripled between 8 p.m. and midnight last year. The top places in the UK to become a millionaire with the National Lottery have been revealed. Birmingham takes first position with 168 people banking a 7-figure sum. That's the latest. I'm Rosa McRae.
This is Love Sport.
It's the 20th anniversary of the Pride of Britain Awards, which celebrate ordinary people doing extraordinary things, like Ben Clifford from Surfability, winner of the TSB Community Partner Award.
Surfability is an adapted surfing school for anyone with any kind of additional needs due to illness, disability, learning difficulties, anyone who needs a bit of extra help. We've created an adapted surfing community in South Wales. It's not a hot country, we don't have perfect waves, but we've got great waves, we've got an amazing coastline, it's so beautiful. Anyone who doesn't access that is missing out.
TSB believes people helping people is a good thing for all of us. That's why they support local causes up and down the country and proudly partner Pride of Britain.
It's a sport which can be adapted and can be inclusive of so many people, and we're just finding new ways to do it all the time.
So make sure you and your family are watching the Pride of Britain Awards tonight at 8 p.m. on ITV in partnership with TSB.
Love Sport Radio on digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys. Let's touch on those headlines this morning. WADA to investigate all athletes who train with band coach Salazar. Farah's old samples may be retested. Klopp dismisses Pep claims that Sadio Mane is a diver. West Brom beat managerless Stoke City 2-0 to go top of the Championship. England collapsed against New Zealand in T20. New Zealand take a 2-1 lead in the 5-match series. Gomez, his surgery went extremely well and Spurs are to appeal against Sun red card. I am here with Mr. Patrick Christys and we're with you for another hour.
Yes, we are, you lucky, lucky people.
You lucky, lucky people indeed. As always, you can get in touch 0208 70 20 558. We've had several messages on YouTube. We do appreciate them as always at Love Sport Radio on the socials. We've got a big hour. We're going to be speaking to Stuart Codling, F1 journalist, of course, Lewis Hamilton. Lots of news about him at the moment. Fantastic achievement. 6th championship title. We'll be speaking to Nikolai Lisberg, Spanish football expert as well. We'll be hearing from Andrew Strauss. He was on Posh Boys on Drive yesterday. We'll be hearing from him too.
Yes, we will. Where should we start, Rich? We've got Mo Farah. It looks as though his historic samples are going to be investigated. Let's just move it on a little bit because we all know this story, right? That Mo Farah's coach or former coach, Alberto Salazar, done 4 years, drug offences, shared a flat with Mo Farah before London 2012. They found banned substances in there, but Mo Farah has never failed a drug test. All right, we know all this. Let's just move it forward. What happens if, and not just Mo Farah, or indeed at all Mo Farah, but if there is a raft now of Olympic winners or world champions who have been trained by Nike under the tutelage of Alberto Salazar, who en masse are shown to have taken something, or, you know, there's a masking agent or something like that in their bloods. Is athletics dead?
For me, yes. I think
Would you ever watch the Olympics
No,
again?
because then there's just... Do you know what? Even the whole... You know, we touch on some of the things that have happened historically. Lance Armstrong being a great example where the moment that you found out, because there's always the suspicions, but you always felt like, no, you see the amount of interviews he's given and he was so adamant. He was brutal in some of the interviews. So you felt like, to be that... he must have been innocent. Then when... You know, that moment, the Oprah Winfrey interview, and it all came out. I was like, oh, my... You know, and it just changed for me anyway, changed my whole opinion on Tour de France. And I lost to be honest now, of course we cover it, and the people that are winning and those that are clean, look, huge credit to them. To actually do that and be clean is incredible. But, of course, there's always that thought, are you clean? Because of Lance Armstrong, because of some of the other riders that we've heard over time. So what happens if some of these turn out to be guilty? Then for Nike, it will be huge. You would think, surely it would be huge, and it would be a massive, massive kick in the teeth.
Yeah.
For them, it should be athletics, like I've touched on, and then for the individuals involved, what then happens to a Sir Mo Farah? Well, I think we know what would happen. You know, it would then instantly their names would be dragged through the mud. And this is why I think, from Mo Farah's point of view, this should be a huge positive, because providing he is clean, which we believe him to be, then as soon as this is retested and it's once again that he's clean, perfect, it's done.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Your name is clean, you crack on.
So one of the reasons they've done this is that the people who initially investigated Salazar was the United States Anti-Doping Agency, USADA. Now, they did not have the authority to go and look at Olympic or World Championship samples historically. The only people who can do that is WADA. So is the World Anti-Doping Agency. So because they're clearly the overarching body, they have the power to do it. So they are now apparently thinking about it, / maybe, probably, possibly, potentially doing it. So we'll have to see what happens there. But there is this backlog of tests. Now, the real concern for a lot of these athletes potentially will be if they took something at the time that masked whatever it was, or if they took something at the time that wasn't yet a banned substance that is now, because that is what happens to a lot of these people. You know, someone like Nike have got billions and billions and billions of pounds. They basically get into bed with Big Pharma. They can get these products, as it were, before they've had a chance to be banned. So that is where the real risk for a lot of these athletes is.
That would be okay. I say it'd be okay. That would be okay.
It would be
good
okay,
example.
but it would indicate something, though, wouldn't it?
I suppose a good example, we had it in football. Red Bull, other energy drinks are available, but Red Bull was banned for a period of time where you could have a maximum of 2 Red Bulls, and that was it. So then a lot of players would do that. They'd max out. They'd take their 2, and that was that. Then they dropped it, actually, I believe, towards the end of my career, where you could have as much as you wanted. But as long as if they did something, it was okay at the time. I've got no problem with that, because as long as they were within the rules, and rules change all the time, but as long as they were okay during that period of time, I'm okay, because they're still operating within the rules. However, if they were doing something that was banned at that time, and it turns out, like you say, if it turns out even as simple as there is a masking agent, if that's all you need to know, the moment that you find out that that is the case, then everything's not even in doubt. At that point, I'd go further than that.
But then this is the thing, which is the point that you just touched on before, which is that for you, athletics would be dead if a lot of these athletes were even. So that's why they would cover it up, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's why. So, you know, it's a little bit like you can see Seb Coe putting his arm around Paula Radcliffe, leading her towards the toilet. No, put his arm around Paula Radcliffe and then just saying, look, like, you know, the sport's dead. The game's dead. The game's dead if this is all true. So then she goes, oh, okay, all right. Well, now I think there's a bit of a witch hunt going on, etc., etc. All this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Do you know what? We're going to change subject
It's
very
not, is it?
quickly. You know he's on the
It's
line,
not,
don't
is
you?
it?
He's on the line.
Don't tell me. Don't play me like this, mate.
This is it. We've been promising it for about an hour and a half,
'Cause I've
and
been
we want to
burned
know the
before.
ending of this story. You can hear it, can't you? He's on the line.
Oh, my gosh.
He is. Rob Lewis is on the line. So, again, we'll touch on this story. Rob, who we've had on the show a couple of times, he did buy a plane ticket to Japan as soon as England beat New Zealand. He had no accommodation.
No.
He had no match ticket.
No.
He had a busted knee.
Yeah.
Did that stop him? No.
No.
We don't know whether he made the game or not. We now have Rob on the line to find out how this story ends. Rob, is it a positive ending?
It was a positive ending, yeah.
No!
Hey, Rob,
Wait, there's a but. There's a but. Go on, hit us.
There was a lot of drama involved.
So go on, run us through the sequence of it. Last time we spoke, you had just sorted out accommodation. I believe you had a hostel, so you had managed to figure that bit out.
Yeah,
Bit classic.
right.
Did you manage to get your match ticket as planned?
No, not at all. So the seller just led me up the garden path right until the day of the game. I went to the box office, went to pick up the tickets that just didn't exist. So I was a bit upset about that, as you can imagine. But I went into town. I was with a few other people, and I brought a backup ticket. And this was a ticket in hand with a QR code on it.
Okay.
So I went back to the stadium. I bought 4 programs. I need to buy someone at home.
Okay.
And I was marching into the stadium. This is like an hour and a half till kickoff. And the scanner went, "Ah."
Oh,
so I'm like,
no, mate.
what? And they went, oh, there might be something wrong with the system. Let's try it again. Ah. And so I'm just like, they were like, oh, so we're going to have to escort you this way, like away from the stadium. So like, I'm just completely dejected here. I'm like, in my head, it's going, hello, darkness, my old friend. And I'm like looking at the river in the distance, like, which is the best place to jump in it. And this is terrible. Like, I didn't know what to do. Like, everyone's going in the stadium. I'm just stood there with 4 programs, and I'm 3 match tickets in, and I can't get in the stadium. Then a miracle happened.
Go on.
I got a text from a lady who I'd met the night before. It wasn't like that, by the way. A lovely lady called Jane.
Okay.
And she texted me saying she'd just spoken to a bloke who worked in hospitality who had a spare ticket.
Ooh.
Can I get round to the other side of the stadium in 10 minutes? I'm on crutches, and I'm like, okay. So I've run around this massive stadium on crutches, but it was a bit more like Forrest Gump, where the braces just fly off. I mean, my crutches are just pinging everywhere. I'm running against the crowd to get to the other stadium. So I'm like sweating loads. But I finally get there, and this hero just gave me a ticket. It was unbelievable, and it worked, and I got in.
Okay, I've got so many questions.
Wow.
So wait, you effectively, just to clarify, you bought 3 fake tickets.
Yeah, I bought 2 to go out there with, and I was going to get 2, and I was going to find someone to go with because I went on my own. So that was the 2 I didn't pick up the box office. Then I bought a spare ticket, which I thought, this is a backup. This will get me in, and it didn't. And then, then the miracle happened.
Did he
So I
charge you?
went from
Did he?
complete dejection to happiness?
I got to ask you, how much did you spend on the 3 tickets, and then how much did you end up spending on the ticket that you finally got you into the stadium?
The 3 tickets cost me £1,500. The ticket that got me in the stadium was free of charge.
Wow, that's amazing, amazing. So you ended up getting in, and you're still in
believe
Japan now. You haven't returned home yet.
I am still in Japan. Yeah, I'm soaking it up. I've just been to a digital arts museum, which is unbelievable. There's just like light shows everywhere. It's crazy.
Just out of interest, are you ever going to come home?
I am. I'm coming home tomorrow.
Oh, okay, all right, good stuff. So talk to us. So obviously, when you got into the stadium, unfortunately, we couldn't match your efforts, could we? Your efforts off the pitch, we couldn't match them on the pitch.
No. The game for England was a bit anticlimactic, unfortunately. But yeah, you can't do anything about the result. South Africa deserved to win, so it wasn't like completely gutted about it. But it was just great to be there. Like the occasion, the build up to the game around the roads around the street, like everyone was like singing and dancing. It was good fun.
Yeah, go on. Just talk to me just quickly a bit about the atmosphere there and about your take on Japan from your experience of it. You know how the whole kind of thing's been for you, really.
I was superb. Like when everyone says that the Japanese are very helpful, like they are. Like you can stop anyone in the street and they'll do their best to help you out. And the majority of them are pretty good English as well. Getting around, there's lots of English translations and lots of people to help you. And like the build up to the game, there's tons of rugby fans. Like the English were in full voice, lots of singing before and after the game, long into the night. I think I eventually went to bed at 8 a.m. on the Sunday after the game.
Wow, that's incredible.
So I had a couple of days hangover. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Well, look, I'm delighted that in the end it had a positive ending. It was a fascinating story. We've been following it for the last week.
Have you been on the Sake?
No, just 1,000 lagers.
Fantastic.
Oh, good lad.
Well, look, Rob, safe flight back. Delighted it all ended up. Although it wasn't the result we wanted, I'm delighted you managed to get yourself in the stadium.
Well, this is a true British hero right here. This is a true British hero. He would go. He would go on an intercontinental booze cruise in order to go and with a shattered knee in order to go and watch his team play. Fantastic. Be more Rob.
There you go. Fantastic. Have a safe trip home.
Thanks, guys. Honoured to tell you my story. Thank you very much.
Great stuff. Rob Lewis there, which, do you know what? It's fascinating. Well, he ended up... How's that, though? He ended up buying 3 effectively fake tickets. That's so bad, by the way. And we were talking about your present you bought for your girlfriend, which never existed.
Well, that wasn't my fault. That wasn't my fault.
I mean...
The handbag company did not exist.
Right.
Okay?
So similarly,
You sound just like her, mate. All right, I get enough of this at home. All right, I come here to get away from it all, and here you know what? I don't need this.
Go on, off you go.
Don't need this.
Fine.
Don't need it.
I'll survive.
All
16
right,
minutes past 9.
Bye.
Love sport.
Driving too close to the car in front gives you less time to react. You may not realize that you're tailgating. Leave a 2-second gap between you and the vehicle in front. When it's wet, leave a 4-second gap. By staying back, you give yourself time to react. Stay safe. Stay back. Highways England, connecting the country.
How are you? How are you really? Modern life can be busy, and sometimes it's easier to look after others before looking after yourself. But there's only one you. And making small changes to your lifestyle now could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. So take the first step to a healthier you with our free How Are You quiz. See how you score and get personalised tips and support. From how to eat a little healthier to turning a 10-minute walk into exercise. Just search 1U.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply doesn't work that way. Even a quick look at a message, or firing off a quick reply, affects your concentration and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident. And save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
Love sport.
Love Sport Breakfast, just about getting over that story from Rob there, who did make it in the end.
Sensational stuff.
Sensational. True Brit.
Dedication, that, to the cause. And I think he should have worn a GoPro and live streamed it into the England dressing room, because I would have gone out with a bit more oomph if you realised.
If they'd have known his story, would that have inspired them?
They'd have known.
If they'd only known. We had a really interesting interview yesterday with Andrew Strauss. This was on Posh Boys on Drive yesterday, talking about charity, talking about his playing days. Johnny introduces it.
We're joined on the line by the wonderful Andrew Strauss. Andrew, why do you think we are getting so much more supportive of charities?
I think, first of all, people find it easier to keep in contact with people, and I think people are more engaged with causes or expeditions or challenges that their friends and family are doing, and so I think people want to support that. And then secondly, I think actually it's easier than ever to donate and support. So sites like Virgin Money Giving that make it very, very easy for you to go and, you know, donate your tenner or your 50 quid or whatever. I think that makes it a huge difference in terms of getting people connected with those challenges and exploits that people are undertaking.
And charities are, of course, very close to your own heart with the fantastic work you've been doing with the Ruth Strauss Foundation. How has that organisation developed over the past year?
Well, it's developed out of all recognition, really. I mean, we started sitting in a pub in January with a couple of mates going, come on, let's do this. Let's create a legacy worthwhile or worthy of Ruth's name, and let's make sure that we really do make a difference in terms of pushing out awareness and research into rare forms of lung cancer and providing the right sort of professional help for patients and families that are going through a terminal diagnosis. That's what I've been through. That's my experience, and that was Ruth's experience. And we just want to help other people that are going through something similar. So it's great having an idea, but then putting it into action is more difficult. And setting up a charity is like setting up a new business. It's challenging, and there's a lot of administrative hoops you need to jump through. And you know, that's where we're very fortunate to have been supported by a load of great businesses and causes, and Virgin Money Giving have been fantastic in terms of providing that platform for us to connect with our supporters and get the data from the supporters and make sure that we can keep our supporters informed of what we're doing as well.
What exactly have Virgin Money Giving done to support the Ruth Strauss Foundation?
Well, primarily we've just used their platform, just like all the thousands of other charities that do as well. And you know, that's a very easy online platform for people to donate to your charity. It's not for profit, so you're getting more money to the charity rather than someone sort of taking their cut out of it. And then we've also worked very closely with them on a sort of, you know, a number of events as well. So the Westminster Mile was our sort of initial event, which was supported by Virgin Money, and they've just been great partners, as have a number of other partners we've worked with as well.
And you, of course, had your wonderful Red for Ruth Day at Lord's earlier this summer, which was extraordinary even just to watch on TV. We were all sitting here in the office looking at the swathes of red going, that is an incredible thing to have done. What was that like for you to experience in the stadium?
It was very emotional, to be honest. I think there was a certain amount of pressure on us. Obviously, it's an Ashes Test match, and you wanted to make sure, or we wanted to make sure, that the Red for Ruth Day sort of helped deliver on top of the cricket rather than take away from the cricket. And we weren't sure to what extent people were going to support the cause, but from the moment we got there, it was just so apparent that people wanted to support, they wanted to donate, they wanted to show sort of solidarity behind me and the boys, and also, you know, I think it was a really strong reminder of how well regarded Ruth was in the cricket world as well. So emotional on so many different levels, but also incredibly proud. I was so proud of my boys of the way they dealt with the whole day. And very proud to see the foundation getting as much support, both financially and otherwise, from so many people.
Was a fantastic thing to see. On the Virgin Giving front, I know they've done a set of new research into our charitable habits, which is bearing out this idea that we're getting better at giving to others. Have any of the results surprised you?
I don't think surprise probably wouldn't be the right word, but I think informed, because I don't think on a day-to-day basis you really have any idea of how many people are giving to charity. I think traditionally the UK has always been quite a charitable country, but to see the stats there, I think, is quite illuminating. I think really interesting that quite a lot of millennials, you know, a high proportion of millennials are giving something to friends and family and causes, which I think is fantastic. Younger people that maybe don't have as much disposable income. And I think the most interesting stat I found was that running naked down the high street would raise the most amount of money from people. So,
I'm not surprised by that at all.
So you could expect to raise nearly £10,000 if you were willing to do that. So I'm not sure I'm going to do that for the foundation quite yet, but we'll see how we go.
No, I'd rather have a go at a mountain, I suspect. Where can people find out more about Virgin Money Giving?
So just on the website, virginmoneygiving.com. And I suppose while I'm on the subject, if anyone wants to support the Reece Strauss Foundation, you know, you can do that through virginmoneygiving.com, but also on our website, reecestraussfoundation.com as well.
Really is a superb cause. I know a lot of our listeners will be very, very keen to hear from you on cricket as well. I know you were heavily involved with the shift towards prioritising white ball cricket in your time as director of England cricket. How good was it to see that payoff in the summer with the World Cup win?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were very explicit from the outset in 2015 that we had this incredible opportunity at the 2019 World Cup, and I was determined for us not to waste that opportunity. We had to commit fully to making ourselves, or giving ourselves, the best chance of winning it, and that meant doing things very differently. So, you know, we were explicit. We sort of set ourselves the challenge of winning the World Cup, and so to see the guys do that was just unbelievable, and the way they did it as well, and to see so many people engaged in cricket during the summer, it was a very special day for me. But like anything, nothing stands still, and you've got to kind of then use that and leverage it, and you know, create more interesting things for people to watch, and to make sure that people stay interested in the game of cricket when they've got so many other things to potentially focus on as well. So that's the challenge for the ECB and the England team now, is to kind of use that as a sort of catalyst for more really great cricket coming up over the next few years.
And we got the small matter of the test side to be thinking about as well. By no means a disastrous Ashes campaign, but we did have to endure torment at the hands of Steve Smith on a fairly consistent basis. What's lacking from this current test team, and who could come in and improve them?
Yeah, I think just a bit of confidence, actually. So I think we've had to fight very hard to win test matches, and when we have won them, often that sort of relief that comes with it is led into a less good performance the next time they've played. So I think you've got to get into that winning habit, and you've got to, you know, have a really settled team that you know what you're going to get out of week in, week out. We haven't had that for a few years. I think the second challenge, and probably the more difficult one, because I don't think we've ever really overcome that, is around winning away from home in alien conditions. And that's the difference between you being the best team in the world and being fourth or fifth in the world, is how well you play away from home. And so that's, you know, if I was sitting in Ashley Giles's shoes at the moment, or Chris Silver with the new coach, that's what I'd be focusing on. How do we make sure we win more consistently away from home? If we do that, then our test team's not going to be far behind where our one-day team is.
I'm already excited just thinking about it. Sir Andrew, great to talk to you. Thank you for your time. We really do appreciate it. Sir Andrew Strauss there giving his take on the current England team, both white ball and red ball, and of course the Virgin Money Giving platform. You can get on there and donate to charities, not least the Ruth Strauss Foundation.
This is Love Sport.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men. Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're right.
Secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
Can you save money on your car insurance? Chris did, with a little help from a spokesmansaid.com. Getting real people, real savings.
I'm Chris from Leicestershire, a truck driver. I went on a spokesman's set, which was very straightforward and easy to use for an old git like myself, and saved over £300 on my car insurance.
Find quotes from over 100 leading insurance providers at a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it. You just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F. Face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A. Arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S. Speech. Is their speech slurred? T. Time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
Whoa! Look how much saturated fat is in these chocolate biscuits. It's surprising how much is in our food and drinks. For us kids, eating too much saturated fat can lead to harmful fat building up inside, which we can't see, increasing the risk of heart disease or stroke when we get older. So be food smart. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app and start making healthier choices today.
This is Love Sport.
Lots for breakfast, me, Richard Lee Patrick. Christys here with you for another half an hour or so. Of course, Martin Bell is up next. Brilliant show. Make sure you stay tuned for that. Just to touch on a few of the top stories this morning. WADA to investigate all athletes who train with band coach Salazar. Farah's old samples may be retested. Klopp dismisses Pep's claims that Sadio Mane is a diver. West Brom beat manager of Stoke City 2-0 to go top of the Championship last night. England collapsed against New Zealand in the T20. Gomez, his surgery went extremely well, and Spurs are to appeal against Son's red card. All being well, we'll be speaking cricket shortly. Of course, England had a bit of a collapse yesterday. They're now 2-1 down in the series against New Zealand, which is somewhat of a shame after winning the first T20. Producer Mark, is on the line now to discuss that briefly with us. So it was a bit of a shame. They looked like they were cruising to victory at one point yesterday, from what we understand, and they lost several wickets in quick succession.
That's right, yeah. Beaten back-to-back as well in the T20 is not what we expected for England. I mean, they hadn't been beaten in 7 matches before that, so to have followed that with back-to-back losses is really quite surprising for England. I just wanted to touch on the stuff with Salazar, kind of move away from the athletics side of it. But obviously, so when I was a kid, I spent a lot of time in New York. I went to a lot of baseball, and now baseball in the 90s, show my age here, was notorious for steroid use, which no one really knew at the time. And you had all these big players like Darryl Strawberry for the New York Yankees and Mark Maguire, who would have these massive home run derbies, hit about 50 out the park each time. And you'd just be like, oh, this is great, aren't they the best? And it does, just going back to what you were talking about earlier, it does kind of sour the memories you have. So I just wonder what the legacy of athletics will be if they were to come out that there's been some doping going on. Really.
Well, it's interesting in sports. We talk obviously a lot of football, and from what we understand, there isn't a problem in football. You know, very rarely do we hear of people failing drugs tests that aren't recreational.
And when you do, quite often it's something like a weight loss pill. Well, it's not like, you know.
We were always given a list of things that you could and couldn't have. So, for instance, Lemsip. You can't have Lemsip.
Really?
Lemsip, yeah. you'd fail a drugs test on Lemsip.
I actually had a mate who OD'd on Lemsip, which I thought was quite impressive.
Wow.
It's fine.
I'm glad to hear that. But yeah, Lemsip was one. That was just an example of something you couldn't have on this list. And it was extensive, this list, that you would have of things that wouldn't. But a lot of it, and ordinarily, when footballers do get found guilty, it's normally recreational. It's normally not performance enhancing, which, does that make it better? I mean, does it matter? Either way, what you're doing, if you're on a contract, why would you even risk it for a minute and take something?
It is better, isn't it? I mean, look, it is better, isn't it, that on this sliding scale of idiocy, that someone would have, had some cannabis as opposed to having, a shed load of testosterone, like intravenously dripped into them shortly before competing at a world event.
Yeah.
That is worse than, the whole cannabis thing.
It is. And then I guess with football, is it as simple as this? That football being a skill-based game, it makes less sense, or there's less of an advantage.
Yeah.
Whereas I guess look, Mark made a great point there about baseball, and I remember this, where you had these guys where they're absolute brutes. You looked at them, mountains, and then you find out years later, oh, okay, they were actually on steroids. And of course, when you've got one action, and this is taking nothing away from baseball, there's so much skill involved, I get that. But what is it you're doing? You step up to the plate, you swing a bat. Well, actually, the stronger you are, the more powerful you are.
Yeah.
As long as you get your timing right, then, of course, that's going to benefit you and allow you to hit more home runs. Mark?
Yeah, and it's kind of bizarre as well, because nowadays you get baseball players who are much less in shape, with big beer guts hanging out and stuff.
I like that a
Yeah,
lot.
it's great.
you do.
Well, and also it doesn't serve
Speaks
you
to
well
me.
doing all this steroid stuff, because now you see Mark Maguire and he's kind of emaciated, wearing little granny glasses, and you just think, God, blimey, it really takes your toll. You can't persist with that level of doping for that long.
No.
You have to come off it at some point and stop doing it, and like you really see the effects years later.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I just think then, so going back to athletics, going back to Salazar, again with, look, Mo Farah, all being well, he will be found to be innocent, and it will be a case of these retests that are going to happen. It'll just mean that it just proves his innocence. However, these kind of events, similar to baseball, similar to cycling, whereas it's like, what is it you're actually doing? The amount of power that you need and the way in which you can get ahead is so different to football, for instance, where football, there's so much skill involved. It's not necessarily, of course, the more powerful you are, it will help.
What I don't get is, right, so you've got Sebco doing his best to bury his head in the sand over all of this. You've got, a load of the kind of bigwigs that are doing the same thing. The fact is, there is a monumental doping problem in athletics. So much so that if you look at some of the 10 or 20 fastest ever 100 metres time in the men's, and you go through that list of names and see how many times some of them have been banned for drugs offences, it's shocking how many athletes that Salazar has trained alone that have been banned for drug offences. Loads of them. Just right throughout athletics. And it even transcends some of the winter sports as well. So there is a problem there, which begs the question, why doesn't Sebco and the rest of the lot just stand up and say, right, we've got a massive issue, so what we do now is every single athlete, right, has to be drugs tested morning and night. Once and once. So either that is administered by, and it's videoed, the administration of it is videoed. So, you're fine with your coach doing it, or someone like that, where you draw the blood or you do whatever. We find a way of doing it. But you do it once in the morning and once at night.
Every day?
Every day.
I mean, is that possible? Is that, I mean, look, there's other issues to that, but you're right, it needs to be. It just feels like with technology, I guess, and this is the thing, they're always one step ahead. So this is part of the issue where we're saying about these retests. Part of the retest will be, was there a masking agent in the sample itself? Because if there was a masking agent, then of course it would lead you to suspect that there was a reason that there was a masking agent there.
The thing is that I just don't trust this anymore. No. I think that even if there were a load of athletes that were very well known that have tested positive, like basically their blood's radioactive, I think that gets covered up. Yeah. I think it gets covered up because I think that they know that people like you and I would never bother to watch it again. The whole sport would be an absolute farce.
And this is where they're talking about doing these retests. Isn't that part of the problem or part of the worry, is that actually, do they want to find anything? Because, and depending on who does these tests, if they go and find something, then all they're doing is bringing down their own sport. There's a conflict of interest here, surely.
Yeah, this is it. So you have to beg the question, don't we? When it all broke a little while ago that this was seriously kicking off with Salazar, we're now on the 5th of November, and we're looking at the fact that the World Anti-Doping Agency might now be going back in to look at some of the London 2012 and previous Olympics samples. Well, why has that taken so long? You either have an epidemic in your sport or you don't. And if you do, you should sort it out. And this implies to me they don't want to sort it out. This implies to me that no matter what turns up in these vials, that actually we're not really going to get told anything. And in fact, they might flip it on its head and use it to prove to us, or try to prove to us, that there's no problem whatsoever. Look at this. We've lined all of these up and there's not a single thing. Not a single thing. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, lies.
Well, indeed, the United States Anti-Doping Agency not only tested but retested Salazar's American clients, and not only did they not find anything first time, they didn't find it the second time, and it makes you wonder. It's almost like if they come out and say no, there was no doping ever, and it's all fine. Would it be believed anyway by the general public? Are we all so cynical at this point?
Issue. That's part of the issue. Like you say, for me, it's already tarnished.
It's done. It's done. You know, you've got Russia there that they've banned, and this is the thing that annoyed me a bit about it, which is that we do a very good number in this country of looking down at other countries and condescending to them and thinking that we're better and you know, judging ourselves by a higher standard. We invade countries to bring them democracy and just leave a vacuum for terror. You know, we do that right across the world. We go and bring people culture and civilization and then enslave them. You know, and now we end up looking at Russia. Oh, ban Russia. Ban it, ban them for life. What a horrible country full of drugs cheats. Yeah, all right, mate. You've let our top athlete go and get trained by a bloke called Alberto Salazar, which, I mean, his front room would rival Pete Doherty's.
Yeah, I mean, look, no, you make a great point. It'll be interesting. We touched on it there. How long does it now take? Because they're saying retest. Surely that can't take that long. And this has already dragged to this point. Everybody wants some form of conclusion here. Now, look, as you said, though, I suppose these retests, we want to know exactly who is doing the retests and how legitimate they'll be. But we want a conclusion to this, one way or another, because there is this cloud hanging over so many athletes, Mo Farah being one of them, which, whether he likes it or not, that cloud will remain until we know unequivocally that he's fine and he's innocent.
I don't know if I say this really. So I know a few people who know Mo Farah, and he is a tremendous athlete. He is not necessarily the sharpest tool in the shed. And I wonder whether or not he doesn't quite get the gravity of this, and whether or not he understands how his reaction to this can be misconstrued. If I was him now, I would have called for my samples to have been double checked. I would have called for that. I would have put it out there. I would have said, look, I can understand the suspicion here. Please just trust me. You know, I've given you some great memories. Let's just test all my samples. He's not. He's gone, oh, you're being racist. I'm not, mate. It looks dodgy. Yeah,
well, look, as always, thanks for all your messages that come. We've got one here in regards to this from Hamza. If Mo does get found guilty, then most world champions could get investigated.
Yep.
Good.
Well, I think that's where we're up to. Unfortunately, I think that's where we're up to. But then it builds a case, doesn't it? Going back historically as well. It goes back to the whole Human Thomas thing with the Americans. And that was in the 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we've gone, right, 90s. Let's just write off that decade as one being very prevalent. Then you've got the noughties to the 10s, right? As decade's pretty prevalent. We're about to bring 2020 up. Decade pretty prevalent. Right. So basically, for 30-odd years, at least, athletics has been riddled with drug cheats.
Yeah.
Right? And there comes a point when you can just go, your sport is riddled.
Yeah, and then it's finding, and I guess that'll always be the challenge, is then how do you find a way, and you're saying drugs tests morning and night. Look, logistically, is that possible? Probably not. So it's then, how do you actually do it where it might be, the thing is, I say all this, and you could find a way to do it where they might get tested weekly, or they might get tested every couple of days, or whatever, that's fine. But they always seem to find a way around it. I suppose that's where, and this, by the way, is where it's huge business as well. It's massive business for the likes of Salazar. Of course, at the time, you consider, and I guess this is always the question you ask people. If you were to give a scenario whereby you were told at the start of your career, right, it can go one or two directions. You're a good athlete. You could do okay, but at the age of 30, you're going to retire, you're going to have to work for the rest of your life, and you're probably not going to be a big enough name to go and do media or anything like that. So this is how it's going to be. Or you could take a chance. You probably won't get caught because there's all these examples potentially of people that haven't been caught, and you could be a world superstar, you could be a sir, you could be all these different things potentially. What road do you take? Now, by the way, again, Mo Farah, innocent until proven guilty, of course, but as a scenario, it must be such a challenging one for so many athletes if they know that actually by taking something that you may well get away with, you could go on and win X, Y, and Z, make millions and millions of pounds and be a bit of a hero.
There's a few elements here. Is if you honestly feel like everyone you're competing against is doped up as well, then I suppose it almost legitimises you doing it. That was the excuse that the Russians used, by the way. The Russians used that excuse, which is that we think the West are doing it, so we're going to do it. So there's that. There's the fact as well, you see in this case of like Gatlin, where you can get banned a couple of times and then still come back. So actually your career's not over. And then there is that thing of actually how corrupt is it? I know a friend of mine was a top athlete, was saying that, it would be quite often that an athlete's minder would suddenly find themselves getting in the way of some of the doping officials and that athlete, and then they wouldn't get tested. And so it isn't a completely, clear-cut thing there. So, yeah, there's loads of reasons why you would dope. But look, mate, as well, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I know I come down very hard on all this kind of stuff. I cannot, because I've never been in this situation, I cannot say to you with any 100% certainty that if I felt like I'd hit my physical ceiling and I was just half a second away from being world champion, Olympic champion, sir, or whatever, this kind of thing, I like to think I wouldn't. I don't know.
Well, no one can.
I don't know.
Again, we must stress the point, of course, Mo Farah is innocent. He is, and we'll really stress that. But of course, it's with.
He's never failed a drugs test. We've
Well,
said
he
that
hasn't.
several
No,
times.
it's this. Look, but this is great, and I'm sure that Mo Farah's looking at this as a real positive, because this will then prove. You'd like to think for him, I'm sure if I'm Mo Farah, I want to do every test under the sun, and I want to prove to you so that then this goes away, and we all say, do you know what, Mo? Credit to you.
I don't know how many times we can say this on this, literally this show. Like, Mo Farah has never failed a drugs test. Mo Farah, as things stand, is not a drugs cheat. I've said that at least 1,000 times, probably in this segment alone, right?
Yeah.
I've said that. However, there is clearly a reasonable element of suspicion that we are legitimately allowed to talk about.
Yeah, we've had another message in. Again, appreciate all the messages from Chris. Morning, guys. Never knew Lemsip wasn't allowed, Rich. I'm intrigued to know why and what other meds, drugs that aren't allowed. Do you know what? You'd be surprised. The list is extensive. For instance, a sleeping pill isn't allowed. Yeah, a regular sleeping pill. Yeah, it was actually the amount of things. You could have like a basic paracetamol, but there isn't a lot more. And it was really, really, this list, we're talking pages and pages of stuff that you could not have.
So this guy, Gomez, who just broken his ankle really, really badly, right? What happens there?
Well, so then if you are going to have something, okay, here's one for you. So I was allergic to goalkeeper gloves.
Right.
The irony, of course, but my hands used to crack up every day really badly, and to the point where I couldn't straighten my hands because it was horrible.
That must have been minging.
It was really, really bad. So I needed certain creams. One of the creams that they gave me that cured it was a steroid cream. So, of course, I was allowed that, but then it had to be known to the FA that I was taking a steroid cream on my hands. So if I ever got tested and I had some of that in me, it was because of this steroid cream on my hands.
Yeah.
That's a good example. What it is in Lemsip that you're not allowed, I'll be honest, I actually don't know the exact ingredient, but it'll be to do with one of the ingredients that will be on this ban list. And that was it. You had to look at it. Also, you had to, every single day that you weren't at the training ground, you had to text the number, the drugs number, to let them know an hour of the day that they could come and test you if they wanted to test you. So it was like, even if you're on holiday, for instance, I remember being in Florida, and I forgot to do it one day, and I did get a message through. You get a certain amount of warnings that you could have before you get a strike. But basically, I had to give them a time in the day in Florida, where I was staying, the exact address, an hour that they could come there. Now, they weren't going to come, but you have to do that every single day that you're not at the training ground.
So when you had your steroid cream and you made it known to the FA or drugs companies or whoever it was that you were using that, could only, which I'm sure you didn't, by the way, could you have told them that you were on that, but actually also been on something else?
I mean, look,
I know you weren't, but because
No,
this is what I've always
a fair
wondered
point, because
about these therapeutic
now-
use exemptions and things like that, because I wonder whether or not, actually, we talk about a masking agent, whether or not for a lot of these people, the masking agent is just that little bit of a substance that they say they're on, but actually underneath it, there's a load more stuff that they're taking as well.
It's a fair point. I have no answer for you. That's the truth.
Not guilty.
No comment. 14 minutes to 10.
Giving your team a voice. Love Sport Radio.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Henna men. Pants and pads.
You're
discreet.
me.
Masculine.
You're right.
Secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
Urine.
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
When looking for the best possible deal for his car insurance, Jim went on a spokesmansaid.com and saved hundreds.
I'm Jim. I'm a radio presenter based in Glasgow. I couldn't believe how expensive the car insurance for our Citroen C4 Picasso was going to be from my existing insurer. I went on a Spokesman Said and saved an incredible £600. Just amazing.
Find quotes from over 100 leading insurance providers at a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you'd do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. All better.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast, mutually Patrick Christys. Of course, Martin Bell is up after us. Do stay tuned for that show. Fantastic show coming up at 10 a.m. We're going to be talking a bit of Spanish football. It's an interesting story that I saw, which I'm led to believe isn't true, but apparently Real Madrid to offer 70 million plus Gareth Bale for Raheem Sterling.
Who told you it wasn't true?
Well, it's been rubbished from reports in Spain, and in fact, someone that knows a lot more about this than we do. Nikolai Lisberg, Spanish football expert, is on the line. Morning, Nikolai.
Morning.
Is there any truth to this whatsoever? Because I have seen this in a few places now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the truth is that Madrid is interested in signing Raheem Sterling, but £70 million swap deal with Gareth Bale, I don't think there's any truth in that, and I don't see it happening right now as some media are reporting.
Where's it come from, though? Because I remember seeing it flash up yesterday, excuse me, on the television here on Sky Sports News, and I remember thinking, wow, that's bold. Is it just, well, I mean, it must have come from somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it comes from somewhere. I think Sterling has sort of made it clear early on in his career that Madrid would be an interesting club, an interesting destination. And Madrid being Madrid, always looking to sign the best players, the biggest names. I can see why the link is there, and then you can make the other link that says, okay, Gareth Bale, what's going to happen to him in Madrid? Could he potentially go to Man City in some sort of a swap deal? So I think it's just like hinges of interest that's just been stirred into one big story, but I don't really put too much attention to it, to be honest. I don't see it happening.
No, it's easy to put two and two together, I guess. I've also seen rumours in regards to Jadon Sancho being linked to Real Madrid. Look, I suppose all the top players around the world, Real Madrid naturally are always going to be linked to in the same way that Man City, Man United, Liverpool, etc. were also linked to. Have Real Madrid got anybody in their sights, that they might be looking at for January?
I mean, Florentino Perez said, I think it was 2 weeks ago, he said, we're not going to sign anyone in January because there were rumours about, as there were this summer, about Eriksen, about Pogba, about Donny van de Beek from Ajax. And Florentino Perez said, no, we're not looking to buy anyone this January. I mean, you never know if that's true or if it's just like a part of a negotiating game. But I don't see necessarily Madrid signing players this January. They also have some players coming back from injuries and so on. And I think they have a lot of young players. That's the problem with Real Madrid. They have a lot of young players, but they need maybe the star players. And I think that's why the link to Raheem Sterling was created in the first place.
How's Eden Hazard getting on? Is he still grossly overweight?
Gareth Bale, yeah. I mean, he's on the front page, I think it was, of Marca today, the biggest Madrid Spanish football paper, saying that, yeah, for Wales, yes, I think was the headline in Spanish, saying, because he's in the Wales squad, but he's not in the squad for Madrid. He's injured now, and the Spanish press, of course, finds it interesting that he's somehow fit enough to play for the national team when he seems to be injured constantly when he has to play for Madrid. So There's a lot of talk about Gareth Bale. I think it was a week or 2 weeks ago against Levante or Leganés? I don't remember now. He left the stadium a few minutes before the game was over. He was there to watch his teammates and so on. So every time there is a story about Gareth Bale, it just seems like it's a negative one. Everything gets blown a little bit out of proportion, but that's just the image he has in Spain.
Yeah, I'm interested in Eden Hazard. How's he getting on as well?
He had a light criticism because he came as the new Galactico. He was their biggest signing since James Rodriguez in 2014. He was like supposed to be the replacement for Cristiano Ronaldo, or at least someone who can take on responsibility in the big games. But he had a bit of a wobbly start, I would say. I mean, he's been off injured, and he had his fourth child as well, so he missed a match. So he hasn't played that many matches in a row, and I think that has limited him a little bit. So there are bigger expectations, but there are also a bit of patience still, and there are some moments and glimpses where you can see that he can actually do something.
Oh, I think we might have lost Nikolai. He seems to have just dropped out, unfortunately. He said he had a wobbly start. It wasn't the only thing that was wobbly, apparently, from what we understand.
No, absolutely. He was jiggling about the place, wasn't he?
Indeed. But it's actually a really interesting league this season. The fact that you've got 1 point separating the top 5 teams at the moment in La Liga. Barcelona and Real Madrid are 1 and 2, but only essentially on goal difference. So we're going to see if we can get Nikolai back. In fact, I think we might have got Nikolai back.
Do you reckon it'll be a step up for Raheem Sterling to go to Real Madrid, though? Seriously, do you reckon he should do it? And also the other thing is, from City's perspective, Gareth Bale coming in, good player, hasn't played under Pep before, doesn't really know City's way of doing things. City don't need the money. Why would anyone agree to that deal?
I personally think, and in fact we'll get Nikolai's thoughts in a second, I personally think that actually making that move to Spain, like we've seen so many players, or some players do, I think if you can do it in the Premier League and then you can go and do it in La Liga, and the players that have actually done that, Ronaldo being a great example, I think that actually adds to the name, adds to the image, adds to the brand.
I get that, but do you reckon it would make sense from a City perspective?
Well, I mean, look, I'll tell you what, let's get Nikolai's thoughts on this. Also, Nikolai, I want to talk to you about Barcelona as well, because we touched on the fact there's only 1 point separating the top 5. Barcelona and Madrid, they're doing okay, but certainly not brilliantly. And Barcelona, they've already lost 3 games in their first 11. What's going on there?
I think the first couple of matches you could say it was down to Messi being injured. Barcelona with or without Messi is just a complete different team. Now he's back, and then they had a weird one against Levante this weekend. I mean, they were winning 1-0, but it's not clicking. They are a different team away from home than they are in Camp Nou. We've seen that in the Champions League as well. It's such a different team. It seems like they're lacking the confidence to play the same way away from home than they do in Camp Nou. And I think that's the main issue. And then that golden triangle, the new MSN, the MSG with Griezmann, it hasn't really clicked yet. We've seen a little bit, again, a glimpse of hope that it could be something special, but as of now, it's just not clicking.
No, fair enough. Great stuff, Nikolai. As always, appreciate you coming on. That's Nikolai Lisberg, their Spanish football expert, giving us the latest on La Liga. Of course, Barcelona take on Slavia Prague tonight. Real Madrid are in action tomorrow against Galatasaray. So going back to your point on Sterling.
Yeah.
Look, at the moment, I'd argue, in fact, not even argue, he is the best team in the world, as far as I'm concerned. I know they're second in the league, and Liverpool fans will probably have an issue with that, but for me, the football they play, he is at the best team in the world based on the last couple of seasons. Do I move to Real Madrid? The only reason I would is that I think as a brand, a Raheem Sterling brand, you've already done it now in England. I think, look, there's a lot more you can achieve, but you've already done so much. If you were then to go to Spain, whether that's a Real Madrid or a Barcelona, win La Liga with one of those, and then you were maybe to go somewhere else, like Beckham did to an extent. And by the way, no disrespect to Beckham, you'd say that Sterling's got a lot more ability than David Beckham. For him to go to a few different countries and win trophies in different countries, I just think as and when he does retire, you'll look back in a similar way in which we do look at a Ronaldo as a great example, Ibrahimovic as a great example.
The only thing will be is he's just about, well, now he's after a very long battle actually, which he shouldn't have had to go through, has now become a household superstar, someone who's pretty universally liked, right? Does he then, by going to Spain, lose that? And that's something that he's been working very hard to cultivate.
I think he solidifies it. I think it's a case of almost, life, completed it.
No, I've completed it.
Completed it, mate. No, it's almost like that. Premier League, completed it. It is kind of, for me, that.
yeah.
Look, he can go on and win 4 or 5 more Premier Leagues. I'm sure he will. But actually, what about going and winning a La Liga? I think it'd be a great challenge, personally.
Yeah.
I mean, this is being said as a Man United fan, so of course there might be a slight agenda here.
And then if De Bruyne follows him,
I think he should.
I think he should.
I think he should.
Jesus
I mean,
as well.
Edison, you've done all you need to do here. Crack on.
Complete the Premier League.
Absolutely. Yeah. Fantastic. Appreciate your company as always. Appreciate your company. We'll be back tomorrow at 6:30. I can tell you the time to leave because producer Marcus put his coat on. There you go. There you go. We'll see you tomorrow. Stay tuned. Martin Bell up next.
Love sport.
This is Lionel, another very happy person who saved themselves money at a spokesmansaid.com.
Hi, I'm Lionel from Peacehaven. I took note of what the spokesman said and I saved £484 per year on my energy, and I recommend everybody does the same.
A spokesmansaid.com. Getting real people, real savings. Compare, switch and save with a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some